Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. I am Abdul Smith Bey of Alodia Moorish Monte, Georgia, which stands for Free Moorish Estates Before Georgia. And what's today? Today is January 15th, Gregorian calendar. And today we'll be going over, or we'll be discussing how to establish states. So, fairly speaking of a treaty and specifically, we will be talking about how to establish states, and we will be utilizing some treaties to discuss it. What I have on the screen is the principles of uti possidetis jurisdiction, or uti possidetis juris. Can you all hear me well?
Islam, brother, yes, and
Islam,
Grand
clear.
Rising. This is Empress YZL Mini Bay.
Hey, Wazir, how you doing, sister?
Great Rising.
Awesome. Glad that you on. AMPAG, Alodia Moroccan, Palladium Ante, Michigan.
Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. All right. But we won't start off with that. Let's start off with the Montevideo, which is a convention or a treaty that was enacted in 1933. Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States. It was signed at Montevideo 26 December 1933. Entered into full force in 1934. All right. And what does Article 1 say? Well, the preamble goes, they went over all these different signatory powers, which is all the different countries in on the Western Hemisphere. They specifically Northwest of Mexico and Southwest of Mexico, or North America, South America, Central America, Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Brazil, and all these countries. Those are the signatory powers, and they have been found with full powers in good and due order. How do I know that? That's in the preamble. It goes, who after having exhibited their full powers, which were found to be in good and due order, have agreed upon the following. So that's a key. Those are key terms. What we're trying to do here with our states is to establish our states that with full powers that would be found in good and due form or good and due order. Active Algeciras says good and due form. You see, they copy all our stuff. Let's go to it. Let's go to it. Fast it up. Where is it? Okay, so you see here, who furnished with full powers, which were found in good and due form. They got that language from the Act of Algeciras, and even the Treaty of Madrid. Full powers, which were found to be in good and due order. So what does that mean? That means that those states have they have a ratified, deposited, and promulgated constitution according to Article 102 of the Charter, right? They have legislation, they have a flag, they have a seal, they have all the things that are necessary to give you the full powers that's found in good and due order. That doesn't happen unless you establish a state. The Moorish Science Temple of America is not a state. Therefore, it lacks full powers that are found in good and due order. Furthermore, if the Moorish Science Temple of America was a state, that means that it would be a nation state, which also means that it would be a country. So then that means then that the name of that country would be the Moorish Science Temple of America. Really? It's not a state. It's not a government. It is a organization. So what does Article 1 say? Can someone read Article 1 for me, please?
Islam. The state as a person of international law should possess the following qualifications. A permanent population. B, a defined territory. C, government. And D, capacity to enter into relations with other states.
I appreciate that, good brother. The state as a person. So let's go here. Excuse me. This is a Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties of 1969. Article 1, the scope of the present convention. The present convention applies to treaties between states. We have to understand that individuals cannot invoke treaties. So these are some definitions and terms. We'll get back to it, but let's see. It doesn't have person on it. I thought it had person. Okay, we'll get back to it. So let's go back to the Vienna Convention, Montevideo Convention. The state as a person. So a person is in international law is a state, right? It's also a corporation or an organization. It's also a human being, right? So it has to be defined based on the document that you're dealing with, right? So the state as a person of international law should possess the following qualifications. So there's 4 qualifications that's required according to the Montevideo Convention. So all of you who are looking to establish your states, take notes. And keep in mind, this entire movement, the mentorship that's being provided to those coming online, that mentorship is being provided for free. I like to brag on that because Moors like to charge people for stuff. And the ironic part about it is that they charge you for things that don't even work. And all it does is have you jammed up in jail somewhere. And then when you call the guru that provided you the patently frivolous document or package, suddenly there's crickets. They don't answer, you can't get in contact with them, et cetera, et cetera. It's egregious. So we pride ourselves in assisting states to come online the right way under international law for free. Our charge to you is that you actually put in the effort and do the job, do the work, and do the work properly. Follow the proper directions, and don't try to do. First of all, don't try to mix statehood with old processes. It's 2 separate, totally separate processes. You have to unlearn the old paradigm and replace that old irrelevant information with this new solid res judicata, well-settled principles type of information. Okay. So your first requirement is a permanent population. So let's examine that. Someone tell me, what do you think a permanent population represents?
A body of people who permanently reside in a geographical territory.
Mhm. Oh,
And the judicial branches,
no, we haven't
there's
gotten there.
permanent territory is all people that reside in that area and they permanently are there forever. That's where they live at.
Islam. So now the next question would be, how many people should it be to make it legitimate, to make it official, to make it a thing, to make it
3.
3? Okay. Anyone else?
20.
One more person. Who else?
Seven.
Someone said 3, someone said 20, someone said 7. Okay. The minimum is 3. All those answers are pretty much correct. I would say this particular article, and nowhere else in international law, any of these documents, identify a specific number. So then what you would need is the minimum to establish the actual state. Oh, we don't need 1 million people in order to have political legitimacy in the establishment of our states. What we need is at minimum 3 people. The person that said 3, why did you say 3?
That's me, Minnie Price, Minnie Bay Wazir. I said 3 because of the 3 branches of government. You know, to establish a state, you need those 3 branches: the executive branch, legislative branch, and the judicial branch.
at minimum.
At minimum, that's why I said 3.
Islam. Excellent answer. Now, for us here in Morocco, Northwest of Mexico specifically, Morocco of the farthest west, we have a different situation. We have a much different situation than any other successing state. What do I mean when I say successing state or successor states? All of our Moorish states that are coming online are successors to the colonists who have been in operation the whole time that we have acquiesced. We'll be getting into that as it relates to Uti Pasadeta's jurisdiction. But we have a different scenario. We have a unique situation here in Morocco. Why am I saying that? Well, it's because, let's say, let's talk about AMPAM. AMPAM, how many officials and nationals do you guys have in your newly established states?
A total of I think it's 15 of us total.
Okay, excellent numbers.
Mhm.
Okay, so you guys have 15 Moorish nationals. That's what you have. You have 15 Moorish nationals. Now, AMPAM, let me ask you another question. How many citizens reside in the trust territory, the dependency state of Michigan? Give me a ballpark. It ain't got to be an exact number.
Million, up to 1 million, I say.
You said what?
I say a couple million.
A couple million. Let's say 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got 15 nationals in your state, and then you've got 3 million people that reside in Michigan. Okay.
Okay.
Article 102 of the Act of Algeciras states that any fines, penalties, and confiscation shall be imposed on foreigners by what does it say? I believe consular court, and by and upon Moorish subjects by Sharifiate authorities. Keeping that in mind, so you've got 15 nationals in your state, and then you've got 3 million foreign citizens and Moorish subjects in Michigan. Are you guys following me? Are you guys see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I'm with you.
Here's where I'm going with this. Your permanent population is actually 3 million citizens plus your 15 nationals. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because you have made a proper claim to restore the trust territory of Michigan, which means then the dependency state of Michigan, chartered colony, falls under the authority and the jurisdiction of Allodium, Moroccan, Palladium, Ante, Michigan. So just like that, with the stroke of a pen, this is why the pen is mightier than the sword. With the stroke of a pen, which was the enactment of your constitution, which is an international agreement, just like that, you have acquired 3 million people as your permanent population. That's A. B, a defined territory. So a defined territory is the territory that you're reclaiming from the colonists under Uti Pasadeta's jurisdiction through what's called your longitude and latitude coordinates. I should have kept it up. Let me see if I can go back. Let's go back to it. Let's go to this real quick. I just thought about showing you all something. Be patient with me. Give me a second here. We're going to take a look at one of our possible or potential sister states, which is a compound, which is a Maroon government established in the trust territory of Jamaica, in which now you find the chief, which is the head of state, wearing vest. You can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, so this is laying out their uti posidetis jurisdiction, right? It is their permanent, is their defined territory. You see that? So now this is how a compound, which is the name of the state, this is how they establish their how they have identified their territory, their permanent territory. Okay, they call it cockpit country, maroon boundary cockpit country. Okay, so then when we go to our constitution, you'll see how we set it up. Which is the law of St. Kofa. It's been revised, by the way. So, Brother Hakeem, we've got to replace it with the revised version. So you see here, it says dominions. The dominions for Alodia, Moorish State, Monte, Georgia include all land, air, and waterways within latitude 30.5 degrees north to 34.9 degrees north by longitude 80.8 degrees west to 85.6 degrees west. Our Earth dominions are 298 miles long east to west and 230 miles wide north to south. The total area of land and waterways is 59,425 square miles, which is 57,906 square miles of land and 1,519 square miles of water. The lower point is 0 feet above sea level, known as the Atlantic Ocean, and the highest point is 4,784 feet above sea level, known as Brasstown Bald. These are the dominions from the center of the earth through our divine footprint into the farthest reaches of the cosmos, upon which we thrive, through which we heal, and through which we are restored. So this is how we have established the longitude latitude of the territory that we are reclaiming, which is essentially the entire Georgia map. All we had to do was Google this because the state of Georgia had already performed the engineering that establishes the longitude latitude for the territory. So we just basically went on Google and took it from there. All right, so this is your defined territory as it. Oh shoot, I don't know why this does this. This is the territories, the defined territories as it relates to Article 1, right? So what you're doing is you're becoming the successor state to to colonialism or the trust territory that's been colonized. So you're reclaiming it, taking it back. You have to take it back as is. These are the rules of uti posidetis jurisdiction, which is a preemptory norm of international law. Understood? All right. C, government. That brings us back to the three branches. So your state is the state of mind of the people that came together to enact their proper written instrument, right? Which is your constitution, an international document. So now you need a government to operate on behalf of the nationals. That's your three branches of government: your executive branch, your judicial branch, your legislative branch. And our movement, or at least as it relates to our constitution, because keep in mind, our constitution has been adopted from AMPAG. Many of our states here online have adopted their constitution from AMPAG. In doing so, we basically have acquiesced to the concept that the legislative branch shall be composed by the matriarchs and the matriarchs only, maximum of 13 matriarchs, right? Which I am in total agreement with.
Islam.
Mothers should hold the pen. The mothers are the lawgivers, and their sons are the enforcers of those laws, right? Can we all agree? Islam. And so that's how our structure is set up. So the matriarchal council is the Dalil Aziz, with the head of the Dalil Aziz, which is known as the Sayaraha. And then you've got your Wazir al-Reis, or prime minister, for the head for the executive branch. And then you have your Qazi, or chief judge of consular court, for your judicial branch. Below that, you'd have your minister of foreign affairs, your mufti, or your consul general, which is like the attorney general. You have your Minister of Defense, et cetera, many different positions. If you're looking to establish your state, the best, yes, you can do it with 3, but the best number is 5, because those 5 bodies, those 5 Moors will cover 5 critical positions that's necessary when you're at least enacting your state. That would be your 3 branches plus your Minister of Foreign Affairs and your Consul General. All right, and then so D is the capacity to enter into relations with the other states. So that's self-explanatory. Once you establish your permanent population, your defined territory, and your government through your ratified, deposited, and promulgated constitution, it brings you closer now to having the full powers to enter into capacity, or to give you the capacity to enter into relations with other states. Does everyone understand what was just explained regarding Article 1? Any questions, concerns, comments?
So, just one quick comment regarding the number of officials needed for governmental operations. So everything you said is correct in terms of establishing the government. But one thing I wanted to add is that keep in mind how the United States Congress assembles, right? So whenever they have what's it called? When the president gives a State of the Union address, essentially what they would do is they would have the president there, vice president background, speaker of parliament or Congress, and all the Congress people there, but they would always have one person absent and off somewhere in a secure location in case something happens and everybody's wiped out at once. There's at least one official still alive that can continue running government, right? So at bare minimum for the continuance of government, you need at least one minimum. But yeah, for establishment, you definitely need your various branches. Go ahead.
Excellent point of interest. All right. Any other questions or comments? We'll probably be touching back on this document. Let's move on to another document. Why did this bar show up? I wish it would disappear. Okay, so this document here is called 2011 Treaty Event Towards Universal Participation and Implementation, which is if you look at the bottom right, you'll see it's a United Nations document there, okay? Understanding international law. What is international law? International law is the law governing relations between states, not between individuals. This is why we keep telling Moors that we have to get out of the individual mindset and start coming into this mindset of statehood, because only states can be parties to treaties and invoke those treaties on one another. So if Moors keep talking about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which is the only treaty they seem to know, but they speak on it from the wrong perspective, thinking that they can invoke it as individuals, but you cannot. You have to do it as a state. I just showed and proved that with right here, Vienna Convention. Let's go back up, which is the law of treaties, and it says, and right there in Article 1, before you even begin, what happened to it? Got to go down. Before you even go into it, the very first article, short, simple, easy, and straight to the point. The present convention applies to treaties between states, not individuals, Moors. It's between states. We have to learn to follow the instructions. We can't do whatever we want because of our consanguinity. Yes, we are the Moors, the mighty Moors, the high priest of Anu and all that. All that is good, fine, and dandy. But everybody else got states. You need one too. You're the only ones who don't have states, right? Keeping in mind that the establishment of our states under Moroccan law gives us authority basically over all other states. So it kind of makes sense to do so. And add to that, Moors are international people. So therefore we should be studying international law. Why are we limiting ourselves to their municipal laws? It makes absolutely no sense. It's actually incompetent. What are the benefits of international law? Without it, there would be chaos. right? International law sets up a framework based on states, not individuals, states, as the principal actors in the international legal system. It defines the states' legal responsibilities and their conduct with each other within states' boundaries, longitude, latitude, uti possidetis jurisdiction, and in their treatment of individuals. That would be your individual nationals and citizens, etc. International law encompasses many areas, including human rights, disarmament, transnational organized crime, the United States, refugees, migration, statelessness, the treatment of prisoners, the use of force, which is outlawed, the conduct of war, the environment, sustainable development, the oceans, outer space, global communications, and world trade. So if international law goes all the way into outer space, then that means that Moors have jurisdiction in the cosmos. That's how far our Moroccan law stretches. This is real talk.
Interjection, brother. Is it possible you could put a copy of this in the chat thread so it could be uploaded by those who wish to have a copy?
Brother Hakeem, is it possible you could assist me with that?
Islam, you're trying to upload it to this Zoom chat?
Yeah, if you could put a copy of this in the chat thread, then those who wish to obtain a copy could just grab it and upload it. Gratitude.
So there should be an option if you go to the chat section of Zoom. There should be an option for you to add a file, and you
Well,
simply click that button.
I'm asking to see if you can do it while I continue the class. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, well, let's see.
Unless
You'd
you're
have to
busy.
send it to me. I don't believe I have that particular file
Oh, okay.
because
Give me a minute,
from the
brother.
URL, it looks like it's on your computer.
Well, it's called 2011 Treaty Event Towards Universal Participation and Implementation. That can be, you could possibly Google it. Give me a second, good brother.
All right, we'll try and Google. Much gratitude.
Yeah, we can Google that. I don't want to stop to do all that, and then it's gonna the class will suffer. I'd have to stop to do all that. But that's an excellent idea and an excellent point. Anyone that can do that, please do so. You simply got to Google towards universal participation and implementation, or should I say 2011 treaty event towards universal participation and implementation. Can you all see the screen? Can you see the title? You may even
Islam,
type,
that's it.
Yeah.
you may even type in understanding international law. I think that's how I found it. Okay. So it stretches out to outer space, which means we have authority over the cosmos as well. Okay, next question. With so much conflict in the world, how can this really work? International law does work, at times invisibly and yet successfully. World trade and the global economy depend on international rule, which regulate the activities required to conduct business across borders, including financial institutions, transportation of goods, and the exploitation of natural resources. And who does the natural resources belong to? That's a rhetorical question. There are treaties for roads, airspace, and bodies of water. And as new needs arise, whether to prevent or punish terrorist acts or to regulate e-commerce, new treaties are being developed. Does international treaty law impinge on a nation's sovereignty? To become party to a treaty, a state, see, only states can become party to a treaty. A state must express through a concrete act its willingness to undertake the legal rights and obligations contained in the treaty. It must consent to be bound by the treaty through accession, right? Through ratification. We'll get to that. In fact, that's the next question. How does a state express its consent to be bound? So you want to express your consent to be bound to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, to the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras, so that now your state, the competent authority of your state, can hold the United States accountable of their treaty obligations. You can't do it as individuals. So every time we go into the courtrooms screaming out the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, guess what they're doing? The judge in his head laughing. This is why sometimes they give us psychological evaluations like, are y'all crazy? Do you realize what you're really asking here or what you're demanding? Like you're not, you guys are subjects. You can't even talk treaty, right? It's ridiculous. We've been so incompetent. A state can express its consent to be bound by a treaty in several ways. As specifically set out in the final clauses of the relevant treaty, the most common ways are definitive signature, ratification, acceptance, approval, and accession. The terms ratification, acceptance, and approval all mean the same thing in international law, particularly when used following signature subject to. The state has agreed to become party and is willing to undertake the legal rights and obligations contained in the treaty upon its entry into force. Before I continue, let's go back to the Vienna Convention on the law of treaties. What does it say? For the purpose of the present convention, A, what is a treaty? Treaty means an international agreement concluded between states in written form. What was that? Between states in written form and governed by international law, whether embodied in a single instrument or in two or more related instruments, and whatever its particular designation. B, ratification.
Okay.
What was that? If you're, could y'all please mute your mics if you're not speaking. B, ratification, acceptance, approval, and accession. Mean in each case, the international act so named whereby a state establishes on the international plane its consent to be bound by a treaty. Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaty, 1969. For your further erudition after this class, Google Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties of 1969. Read it, study it. Our should I say, I don't know, classes, you could say, study sessions, they're always based in reference points so that you all can take those reference points, go home, or you're already at home. So you take those reference points and go through them yourselves. Study to make yourself approved, especially if you're looking to establish your governments, your wazirs, your qazis, your Dalil Aziz members. You all have to have higher erudition as it relates to these matters so that you know what you're doing as you continue moving forward in this movement so that you don't lag behind. And all you have to do is Google this information. See, this is what's interesting. In the old paradigm, there's a cost to everything, whether it's a book that you might go buy, the golden age of the Moors, right? Which now it's like astronomically high in price because they don't want you to gain access to it, right? Plus your other processes, etc. Everything, there's a cost for everything. Well, as it relates to international law and the actual documents that serves for your salvation, all this stuff is free. You can just Google all this stuff, or you can pull it up on YouTube and follow along with people like Jay Bay or the European guy, the European brother Pierre from International Law Mock. I learned a lot from that guy because Jay Bay told me about it and I pulled him up and there he is, breaking it all down in 5 to 10 minute videos. So this information is available for free, Moors. You have to take the time to research it and study it, make yourself approved, raise your degrees of understanding as it relates to international law. C, full powers. You see how these several documents are saying that the signatory powers have been found with full powers and do good and due order. Well, this is what this is talking about. What does full powers mean? It means a document emanating from the competent authority of a state. Okay. A question for the floor. It says full powers means a document emanating from the competent authority of a state. What document is it referring to?
Your constitution?
Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing- Comes from the authority, the competent authority of a state, designating a person or persons to represent the state for negotiating, adopting, or authenticating the text of a treaty. That would be your minister of foreign affairs, your plenipotentiaries, your ambassadors, etc. For expressing the consent of the state to be bound by a treaty or for accomplishing any other act with respect to a treaty. Then you got terms like reservation, means a unilateral statement, however phrased or named, made by a state when signing, ratifying, accepting, approving, or acceding to a treaty. And keep in mind that as you go through the process of checking these boxes, when you get to the level of integrity of domains, which is the second box, the second boxes, that's where you would begin the process of acceding to the treaties. We've got model instrument, the model instrument that was established by the Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, along with Brother Hakeem Bey from AMPAG, to help you all check the boxes as you come online. AMPAM has already begun the process, and in fact, you guys have already sent off your 33 accession documents, correct? Is that correct, AMPAM?
Correct.
So we'll talk about that as well, all the several boxes that we need to check. So I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just going to hit another point here. Party. Party means a state which has consented to be bound by the treaty and for which the treaty is in force. So what is a party? It's a state. What is a person? It's a state. The difference is that a party is a state which has consented to be bound by a treaty. So any state that's part of a treaty are parties. So you may be asked, who are the parties to the treaty? So who are the parties to the Act of Algeciras? That would be the United States of America. That would be France, Great Britain, you see, Russia, etc. Get back to the reading. It says, signing a treaty is one of the most common steps in the process of becoming party to a treaty. However, simply signing a treaty does not usually make a state a party. Although in some cases, called definitive signature, it might. A state does not take on any positive legal obligations under the treaty upon signature. Signing a treaty does, however, indicate the state's intention to take steps to express its consent to be bound by the treaty at a later date. Signature also creates an obligation on a state. In the period between signature and ratification, acceptance or approval, to refrain in good faith from acts that would defeat the object and purpose of the treaty. Multilateral treaties contain terms that indicate where the treaty is to be available physically for signing and for what period of time. Multilateral treaties often provide that they will be open for signature only until a specified date, after which signature will no longer be possible. Once the treaty is closed for signature, a state generally may become a party to it by means of accession. So what is that saying? Obviously, the Act of Algeciras was closed for signature. It was back in 1906. The only way now to become a party to the treaty is through accession. So we accede to the treaties. Some multilateral treaty, which the Act of Algeciras is a multilateral treaty, by the way. Some multilateral treaties are open for signature indefinitely. Most multilateral treaties on human rights issues fall into this category, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, and the International Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1966. Those treaties are part of the package of 33 treaties that you all would need to accede to, as it relates to coming online with us, because going through that process is what's going to give you the recognition from our respective states. How are treaties enforced? This is no overarching compulsory judicial system or coercive penal system to address breaches of the provisions set out in treaties or to settle disputes. That is not to say that there are no tribunals in the international legal system, because there is. That's the ICJ. For example, the Charter of the United Nations established the International Court of Justice, the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, as a means by which member states, bless you, and mute your mic, please.
Oh, shit.
She said, oh, shoot. As a means by which member states may settle their disputes peacefully, because it's all about international peace and security in accordance with international law. The court can also give advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by duly authorized international organs and agencies. Member states of the United Nations, in cases to which they are parties, are obliged to abide by the court's decisions. The United States has to abide by the court's decisions when we take them to the ICJ and beat them at the ICJ. They have no choice. However, before a case can go before the court, a state must have accepted the jurisdiction of the court. This is where the Pacific Settlement, Chapter 6 deals with this particular matter that Jay Bay is covering, or has been covering in classes, was that 84 and 85, the latest classes. However, before a case can go before the court, a state must have accepted the jurisdiction of the court, either in general or in relation to a specific case. A state has not accepted the court's jurisdiction. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. A state that has not accepted the court's jurisdiction cannot be forced to appear before the International Court of Justice, which the United States have already accepted the jurisdiction, the compulsory jurisdiction of the ICJ. We will too. And so therefore, we're both bound to the ICJ, and we can take them to the ICJ. States may also entrust the settlement of specific disagreements to other international dispute resolution mechanisms established by treaties, such as the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, the Permanent Court of Arbitration, and the dispute settlement bodies of the World Trade Organization, among others. Different treaties may also create different treaty body regimes to encourage the parties to abide by their obligations and undertake actions required for compliance. For instance, the Human Rights Committee monitors the implementation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination monitors implementation of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. And the Committee Against Torture monitors implementation of the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. This is international law, Moors. Everyone must be treated equal, and everyone must be treated with the utmost respect. This is where the uplifting of fallen humanity comes into play. This is whose job? Our job as Moors to ensure that these principles are being adhered to. The United States, as one of the 5 Security Council members, they're belligerent. They'll waterboard you quick. What is waterboarding? Does anyone know what waterboarding is?
Yes, I know what that is. That's when they put a rag, they help put your head back and someone's holding you down and they put a rag over your face. They get a bucket of water and they keep pouring water through your mouth and your nose. Well, it's almost like they're slowly drowning you.
That's horrific too. Under Bush, they were practicing those torture methods on the Iraqi and Afghani soldiers, etc., whatever, in Guantanamo Bay. It's ridiculous, but it's against international law. This is the reason why we have to come online. This is the reason why we have to remove these people, because they're belligerent, and their veto powers was giving them that power to do these types of things that's going against international law. Why? Because if a case is brought up against them, they can veto it. The Security Council can also adopt under Chapter 7 measures to enforce its decision regarding threats to international peace and security, breaches of the peace, or acts of aggression. Such measures may include sanctions or authorizing the use of force. Right? And so that is 2011 treaty event towards universal participation and implementation. Islam. So now let's go back here. So we're talking about Moors. what does this have to do with Moors? Well, it has everything to do with Moors. Back to the expatriation document with Hoffman Phillip and Mr. Root, the Secretary of State at the time. It goes, citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protections are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. Persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship, establishing our state governments. AMPAG is a foreign country to the United States of America. So the nationals of AMPAG can prove foreign citizenship or protection, which means then if they can prove foreign citizenship or protection, that means that they're no longer what? An ipso jure Moorish subject. So then what do they become? Moorish nationals with the stroke of a pen, by enacting a constitution, setting up your 3 branches of government, acceding to the treaties. You just like that, you became a national officially, for real, not a sovereign citizen Moorish American national. This is how come Moors are getting jammed up, because they haven't followed the proper instructions, which is to establish your foreign jurisdiction through your own 3 branches of government, your flag, your seal, your constitution. 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country. So we were naturalized and put on a protectorate status under the United States of America, or let me rephrase that, under the United States, because the United States has treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. I mean, it's just that simple, Moors. There's nothing to argue here. I've had Moors argue back, I'm not a Moorish subject, I'm not a Moorish subject. I've got a nationality ID. Okay, did you really read and understand what this is what's being said here? You are a Moorish subject, brother. Do you have a state, a Moorish state, under that affords you the protections and be able to prove the separate jurisdiction from the United States? You get crickets. You get crickets. You can't answer that, but yet they want to argue the fact that they're not Moorish subjects. They literally get into their feelings and their emotions about this, but it's just law. So, and then this particular document is telling you what it is that you need to do. It means then that you got to prove your foreign citizenship or protection, so that you would no longer be considered a Moorish subject. You would now be a Moorish national. So it says again. Go ahead, bro.
Point of interest, the Moorish Science Temple of America teach this. They teach that the Moors lost their nationality due to the fact that they strayed up the gods of Europe. That's their teachings. They don't teach from a legal aspect, as what you just talked about, as how the Moors lost their nationality because they became naturalized in a foreign country. I yield.
Islam's Grand Sheikh, that's the Grand Sheikh, which is also the Mufti of our state. You're absolutely correct, and it comes from the Prophet. Well, we can equate that to the same principle. Being naturalized and being under the protection of a foreign country like the United States means that you have strayed away, right, to the gods of another country that you know nothing of. The gods are the laws of another country that you know nothing of. You have strayed away to someone else's laws. So it's essentially the same thing, but it's coded in a religious fashion. That's the problem with that, you see? But it's essentially a verse, as Moorish subjects, being under the jurisdiction of America, being under American jurisdiction, you're straying to gods or laws that you know nothing of. That's not those aren't your laws. How can I say that to you? How can I prove that? Okay. Reference points. Reference points.
Islam. One quick point to add to corroborate that is gods are essentially personifications of natural forces, which are based in natural law, which is based in divine law. So that's another way of looking at it.
Islam, exactly. I appreciate that. So the very first, there are strict,
Islam,
go ahead.
Islam in another way, their God is government ordinance department.
That's
So
right.
you straighten out the other gods, you straighten out the government's ordinance department. Which meaning you don't have your state, you're at someone else's state.
That's right, which is the reason why they constantly want to enforce their constitution, because Moors don't have their own constitution to enforce.
Exactly.
There are, strictly speaking, no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moor subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship, which means no laws. So since we're not respecting our own laws, and instead we're upholding theirs, that's where we find ourselves straying away into gods that we know nothing of, or laws that we know nothing of. But you see what this document is saying. So then go back to the point, go back to where I was. So then Hoffman Phillip reaffirms Article 15, which is the nationality clause. So he says, it was established by the Convention of Madrid. Let me read that over 2 and 3. Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized or protected. Okay. Why are you Moorish Americans? Well, yeah, why are you Moorish Americans? Because we're descendants of Moroccans born in America. So you can replace the word born with the word naturalized. That's how come you ended up as a Moorish American, because you're a Moor under American jurisdiction. That's a naturalized Moor, right? Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country, having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. Now, this is what they said. They recognized the Moorish Empire. They recognized the Moroccan nationality, because they said it right there, well, how the Moroccan nationality was lost. And they're also talking about the Moorish Empire. So they recognize all this. And they're using the terms, it's Moorish Empire. So if we all know that it's the Moorish Empire, then why the hell do we have a problem with the word Moorish? I don't get it. We got to get away from the old paradigm. You see what they're saying? This is their legislation from Congress. It was established by the Convention of Madrid, concluded July 3rd, 1880 as follows. So he's reaffirming what was said in that treaty, that, by the way, the Treaty of Madrid gave them, it basically legalized colonization, giving them the treaty right to expand all across Morocco, erecting buildings. Every time I get on 20, 75, 85 in Atlanta, I'm seeing all these big, pretty buildings. I'm like, wow, all I see is taxes. They owe all that. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country, and so you've been naturalized in a foreign country under the Naturalization Act of 1870. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization. Well, it was in 1870. This is 2023. It's more than enough time, right? Choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco. So you have an obligation to quit Morocco. You can't just remain naturalized unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. Right? So if the government of if you don't petition the government of Morocco to quit Morocco to remain naturalized in the United States, then you can't do that anyway. You gotta get the consent of your Moroccan government. That's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2. Foreign naturalization, the heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions. So the laws, the American laws, applied to you in all its effects without any restrictions, because you did not choose to go back home to Morocco, Dorothy. This is what Moors are dealing with, Negroes, blacks, and coloreds, etc., Moorish Americans. This is what we're dealing with. Why? Because our Moroccan nationality was lost. Why? Because we became naturalized and protected under who? The United States of America, or the United States. So in order for you to come up under that jurisdiction, so when you go in a courtroom and you say, you ain't got no jurisdiction over me, okay, if the United States doesn't have jurisdiction over you, then who does? Oh, well, I can tell you that, Your Honor, whatever, we don't call him Your Honor. I can tell you that, sir, easily. Boom, here's my state ID from AMPAG. Here's my certificate of live birth from AMPAG. So now you're providing the proof that you fall under the protections of a foreign state. Foreign to who? Foreign to the United States, but you're home. So the United States is foreign to their land, and the United States is foreign to us. We are foreign to the United States. Someone has something to say?
Islam brother, I have a quick question.
Yes.
As we proceed to do a complete nationwide successory, and based on treaty laws and obligation and full faith and credit law, if a national from within, say, AMPAG, travel from within that jurisdiction and go, say, let's say, the Washington state, the state of Washington, because Washington has not been claimed yet, so it's still pretty much under the U.S. jurisdiction, and that national encounter a dispute between a citizen of the United States, will that geographical location give the full faith and credit, honor, and respect to that national, though his territory is actually Georgia succeeded? Are you hearing me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was answering a question on mute. Yes, he will be under that protection because he's under the protection nonetheless. Doesn't matter where he goes. His nationality follows him. If he goes to Timbuktu, if he goes to Pluto, his nationality follows him.
I respectfully honor the answer, but the reason why I'm asking is, as we are right now, and I understand the concept that we are still subjects based on not being able to prove foreign citizenship based on the international procedure. But as it is now, there are several times when a Moor will be traveling in various territory and they encounter some belligerent enforcers, to which, in exchange of conversation, it would normally say, well, we don't know this, or we don't know that, or in the state of Washington, you have to this and you have to that. You see what I'm saying? And this is where, of course, consular jurisdiction will fall into place. But I'm just wondering right now, as we are in the process of reclaiming the whole territory, does other states are given the honor to those states who have already done the successory process with international law?
Well, okay. It depends on a couple of factors. It depends on the activity of your state. So we've got two judicial orders. One deals with the treaty rights of Moroccan nationals, and the other one deals with the protected persons list that needs to be sent out and promulgated and deposited with the United States and the governor of your respective territory that you have reclaimed. Being on that protected persons list, that protection follows you wherever you go. And if you're an official of your state, diplomatic relations also apply to you wherever you go. So it depends on the activity of your state. If your state has not acceded to the treaties and sent off these documents and checked the applicable boxes to establish your full protections, then they would not necessarily be under the proper protections when they're in another territory. Now, the other thing with that is, what period of time are we referring to, right? So if we're talking about like right now, whereas the United States hasn't been, they're still in the process of stalling and denying, they may give pushback. So it just depends on your consular court, how much do they push back, right? Because here's the thing, if you're in, let's say, Nevada, well, AMPAG did not send consular court order to the governor of Nevada, right? So the governor and the government, the de facto government of Nevada, would not be aware of this Moor's political allegiance to another state. However, upon court proceedings, that national can provide his nationality paperwork to show and prove his protections from another state, which means then they would have to contact the consul general of your state to come and pick you up because they don't have any jurisdiction over you. That's what's called consular access.
CNA, Consular Access for Notification Manual.
That's it. Consular. Yeah. Say it again. I forgot the word.
CNA, Consular Notification and Access Manual.
Correct. That's where that comes into play. Right? Which means then a multilateral agreement would have to be established with all these different trust territories who have not been reclaimed yet.
Okay.
Exactly. Process that goes along with it, and we're not fully there yet. However, it doesn't change the fact that you do have your protections, and depending on the activity of your state or how far they have gotten with the correspondences to the charter colony and the United States, only then can you really exercise your protections under the full powers of your state. If that I hope that answers your question.
Yes, brother. It answers the question, and basically, I think the paramount part was the notification. I think once all parties are being properly notified, then it eliminates any aspect of hostility while traveling on your in a private conveyance or on your own land. But yes.
That's correct. And this is the reason why we want as many states to come online, but we got to do it the right way. And we have to continue checking the boxes. And Moore's got to understand that establishing your state is not an overnight, what's the word I'm looking for? Shield. It's not an overnight shield, right? We have to continue checking the boxes to get to the certain point where it becomes so. So that's where patience comes in. This is where erudition comes in, because when you have the proper erudition, when you're erudite as it relates to these matters, it develops patience, because it's like playing chess. You're an excellent chess player. You see the checkmate 10 moves ahead. Well, you cannot jump from the move that you're at straight to checkmate, which is 10 moves later. You have to play it out, right? And in doing so, you got to make sure you don't blunder any of your pieces, right? You got to maintain the strategy that you was working on to establish that checkmate. But you have confidence to know that the checkmate is coming, and you're calm, cool, and collected. You're about to checkmate them. So, you can do whatever you want, opponent, but the checkmate is coming. I just got to play it out. That's what's going on here. But the only way for you to have the patience is by knowing and understanding what's going on, what is Moroccan law, how to apply Moroccan law against the United States. So it requires patience. Nothing is going to happen overnight. Jeff Bezos did not become a billionaire overnight. It took him 10 years. For us, it's not going to take us 10 years. 1 year, 2 years max, we'll be where we need to be. But in the meantime, we have to be patient. We have to continue checking the boxes, and we have to, in some cases, you even have to play the Negro role while the state get the paperwork and all the stuff together before now you can start exercising your Moroccan nationality. Because if you establish your state today, tomorrow you can't really do nothing with it, right? So you got to continue finessing the system, playing the Negro role to your state gets to the point where it can protect you properly with full powers that's found in due and good form. You have to get your state to the point where it has full powers that has been found in good and due form. And that doesn't happen overnight. Islam?
Islam, may I?
Yes, sir. Of course you can.
Islam, that goes towards your integrity of domains.
That is correct.
That's the second part of the box. Once you got your sovereign independence, you work in your integrity of your domains to where you protecting your state, your people, your nationals by creating the legislation that is right for you. That's going to protect you when you go to another foreign trust territory. That's where all that comes into play. So we talking about protection, legislation, protecting your integrity of your domains, of your dominion. Are you?
Islam, that's correct. That comes from your internal legislation, which first begins with the exception. You must first accede to the several treaties, Moroccan treaties, international law treaties, United Nations Charter, conventions, and all the different agreements that affords you the full powers, that gives you the status of being found in good and due form.
That's right.
And that is the integrity of your domains. There's like literally over 1 million boxes in integrity of domains. What else is in that particular aspect of establishing your states? Well, your national trust, your nationality paperwork, your certificate of live birth, your bank, the bank that you're going to use because you need a treasury, et cetera, et cetera. Now, many of those boxes, such as the national trust, et cetera, once it's been established, it remains the same. You don't have to go back and mess with it anymore. But what is ongoing is the enactment of your laws, your legislation. Legislation is the key to the integrity of your domains and the enforcement of the legislation through your consular courts. This is the reason why the United States has like 1 million laws and statutes and codes, and they got laws for everything possible. I remember growing up in the 90s, you can smoke in any building anywhere within the United States jurisdiction. Today, you'll be hard pressed to find a building that you can smoke inside of. Why? Because they have enacted legislation to deal with that matter. So there's legislation to force people not to be able to smoke indoors. It's all about legislation, the power of the pen. If you got a Black business in a white section of a neighborhood, we're using connotative terms, right? If they want you out of there, what do? Enact legislation. Next thing you know, you done went bankrupt. Just with legislation is the power of the pen, which gives your state full power, more powers, the more legislation that you have. Keeping in mind that if there's no rules established, then there's no rules for them to follow. Those rules are the laws. What laws? Your Moroccan laws. That comes from your legislative branch and interpreted and enforced by your consular court. So what gives you full powers what gives your state full powers? Adhering to Article 102 of the Charter. What does Article 102 say? I'm tired of reading. Can someone read for me, please? Article 102, please, parts 1 and 2. Anyone?
I'll read. Every treaty and every international agreement entered into by any member of the United Nations after the present charter comes into force shall, as soon as possible, be registered with the Secretariat and published by it. No party to any treaty or international agreement which has not been registered in accordance with the provisions of paragraph 1 of this article may invoke that treaty or agreement before any organ of the United Nations.
Period. Period. Every treaty and every international agreement. So when all the sovereigns of your state, the people of your state, in their newly found state of mind, come together to enact, right, your emanating document, which is your constitution, automatically becomes an international agreement. An agreement between who? The sovereigns of the state, the people. That's why the Constitution is an international agreement. Every treaty and every international agreement entered into by any member of the United Nations after the present charter comes into force shall, as soon as possible, be registered with the Secretariat. Registered means deposited, put on the record. So your signed and ratified Constitution needs to be registered, deposited, put on the record. With who? The Secretariat. And published by it. So the Secretariat turns around and they publish it. What's the synonym for publishing it? Promulgation. Ratify, deposit, promulgate. So the United Nations Secretariat, his job is to promulgate your Constitution and whatever other documents that you deposit along with the Constitution. And who do they promulgate it with? Okay. I'm gonna ask that question to the floor. Somebody on here knows this because we've went over this before. What does the Secretariat, who does the Secretariat promulgate your documents to? Anyone? We went over this
I
before.
would say all party to the charter, to the convention.
To the other member states of the United Nations.
Absolutely.
So there's 193 member states, all 193 member states, and then member states your document should be published to all of them or promulgated with all of them, which means then Germany, Burkina Faso, Mali, Panama, Brazil, China, whoever knows about the state, the newly formed state of AMPAM, Allodium, Moroccan Paradia Monte, Michigan, as well as the other states who've done it, such as AMPAG, New Mexico, Maru, etc., DIMTY, Unami Buffalo Nation. That keeps you from having to promulgate it to all of them. The Secretary General does it on your behalf. That's the purpose in depositing it with the United Nations. One of the purposes. It has nothing to do with seeking recognition from them, Moors. We recognize each other. They have a separate job. Their job is not to recognize us. Keeping in mind, they can't recognize us anyway because they're an international organization. An organization cannot recognize a state. Their job is to promulgate it or publish it to other states. Islam. However, part 2, no party, we've established what a party is. A party is a signatory power to a treaty. No party to any such treaty or international agreement which has not been registered in accordance with the provisions of paragraph 1 of the article may invoke that treaty or agreement before any organ of the United Nations. What's one of their other organs? The International Court of Justice. So that's a double violation by Moorish Americans. The MAN, M-A-N, Moorish American National. That's what we used to think of ourselves as. I know that's what I followed when I was a Moorish American. Oh, I'm a man. Moorish American National. not. So not only can you not invoke a treaty as an individual, but guess what else you would have had to do? You would have had to do anyway in order to be able to invoke that treaty. You would have had to deposit it with the United Nations. Moors don't deal with the United Nations. Moors think that the United Nations is the devil. Moors think that the United Nations is ran by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and that the whole goal of the United Nations is to put us in FEMA camps and enslave the whole world. Moorish Americans are spooked out, y'all, based in misconcepts and misinformation. So yes, you can't invoke it as an individual, and you cannot invoke it if it's not been deposited with the United Nations. What else you want me to say, Moors? These are the instructions. The general, or this one is the miscellaneous provisions. The instructions, the miscellaneous instructions on how to obtain your full powers that's found in good and due form. Until you do that, you can't go in the courtroom talking about treaties. They'll put you on a psychological evaluation because they're saying, man, this Negro crazy. They need to study. They're incompetent. That's why they get away with using terms against us like sovereign citizens. The instructions are clear, Moors. I hope you guys are paying attention and taking notes so that for those who are interested in establishing their state governments, these are the principles that must be adhered to. Every treaty and every international agreement entered into by any member of the United Nations after the present charter comes into force shall as soon as possible be registered with the Secretariat and published by it. No party to any such treaty or international agreement which has not been registered in accordance with the provisions of paragraph 1 of the article may invoke that treaty or agreement before any organ of the United Nations. We can't even take them to the ICJ if we haven't checked those boxes first. This is the reason why we have established a Y0 roundtable, to make sure that all of our state are in the proper status. What status? Of full powers that's been found in good and due form. We have to maintain a certain standard of excellence in this new statehood movement if we plan on taking down Goliath as David, and the rock being the pen. What is uti possidetis jurisdiction? Uti possidetis juris, UPJ, is a principle of customary international law that serves to preserve the boundaries of colonies emerging as states. Originally applied to establish the boundaries of decolonized territories in Latin America. Uti possidetis juris has become a rule of wider application, notably in Africa, i.e. Burkina Faso versus the Mali case. But look at what it said prior to that. Originally applied to establish the boundaries of decolonized territories in Latin America. Uti possidetis juris deals primarily with decolonization. And what it's saying is that you have to take back or reclaim your territories as is. What do I mean by as is? Well, prior to the arrival of the colonists, prior to Plymouth Rock landed on us, we didn't have all these demarcation lines and boundaries. So we have to reclaim our territories as is. We have no choice around it. The Moors, the Carolina Moors, they cannot take over North and South Carolina. The Moors that are in North Carolina must take over North Carolina. The Moors that are in South Carolina must take over South Carolina.
My blood pressure.
What was that? Well, you had something to say? Can you all hear me?
Oh, no, nothing.
Okay. Look what else it says down here. Uti possidetis is an expression that originated in Roman private law, which is not, that's not exactly true. Where it was the name of a procedure used in litigation about land. It came from a Territorial edict that could be abbreviated as "you possess, so shall you possess." As you possess, so shall you possess. It's dealing with the succession of states. So our Moroccan state governments are the successors to the colonists. And the colonists have demarcated our territories through boundary lines. So we cannot come back as, let's say, 10 Moors and say we're going to claim all of Morocco or these 10 states, as if there's no longer a boundary line. You have to take it back one at a time, one trust territory at a time. And then now, as it relates to Morocco up the farthest west, northwest of Mexico, as we go through the process of taking each territory at a time. Okay, let me ask the floor this question. If in northwest of Mexico, Moors were to take back each one of these trust territories, how many Moroccan states will we have in play? I'm listening.
They're 50. I mean, that's what they have now.
That would be 50 minimum, because they also have other territories like Guam and Puerto Rico. Excuse me. Right? But if we were to keep it just the basics of it, 50 states, you're exactly right. 50 Moroccan states. Which means then now we've established the United States of Morocco. Now it doesn't require all 50 states though. Don't get me wrong. With 10 states, we can establish the United States of Morocco, placeholder name, whatever we decide to name it, the Moroccan Empire, whatever. But the biggest power would be if we were to establish all 50. Oh man, that would be ideal and scary for the colonists. So I would say this. So these are the several boxes. If you got your pens ready to take notes real quick. What are the several boxes that you need to check to establish your state? That would be your, okay. So it's the triple principles. Let's go to the Act of Algeciras, which I had it pulled up in the first place for a reason. Let's go through the preamble. These are all the signatory powers. Okay, so it goes, inspired by the interests attaching itself to the reign of order, peace, and prosperity in Morocco, and recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms. Introduction of reforms. What is the main reform that we must institute or introduce? It's the reforming of our minds, Moors. We have to go back. We have to go from the darkness into the marvelous light. Negro, blacks, colored, African American, Moorish American, and any other nom de guerre, Latin, Hispanic, Indian, Hebrew, Israelite, Pan-African, whatever, you're in darkness. When you come to the understanding of your true nationality of a Moroccan, you come into marvelous light. That's what the prophet was. That's the path that the prophet was taking us down. But that process, coming to the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, is the introduction or the introduction of the reformation of your mind. So that then now you can see yourself in these documents and take back the possession of your rightful estate. That's key, Moors. And recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms based upon the triple principle of the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty the Sultan, the integrity of his domains, and economic liberty without any inequality. Okay? So what is sovereignty and independence? The establishment of your state. Your state must be sovereign and independent and autonomous away from the corporate United States Municipal Corporation International Organization. You cannot be subjugated to them. You cannot go to them for your salvation by signing some sort of an agreement or establishing a corporation under them, a charter under them. Right? As the Moorish Temple of America was set up. What county? Cook County. Where is Cook County? The state of Illinois. So the state of Illinois has the authority over the Moorish Temple of America. There's another state out in Illinois that has done the same thing. They have subjugated themselves in an attempt to establish a state. They got a charter from the Secretary of Illinois as a corporation. That's not sovereignty and independence. It's violating the triple principles. Sovereignty and independent means exactly that. You're sovereign and independent from the United States. Why would we want it any other way? So to establish your sovereignty and independence, there's a few boxes that you got to check. Here's where I want you to start taking your notes. Number one, your Constitution. Maybe that's not number one, but you could say it's number one. It actually should be number one. Let's say it is number one. It is number one, actually. You got to have your Constitution. Without that, you don't have anything. So your Constitution, your flag, your state flag, which that state flag will be part and parcel to the Moorish flag or the Moroccan flag, which is the cherry tree, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star. That's not your national flag as the Moors like to believe. That is an international flag. That flag represents planet Earth. The question is, what is your provincial state flag that falls under the jurisdiction that's part and parcel to that Moroccan or Moorish flag? That's the question. That's what you got to establish, your state flag that falls under the jurisdiction that's part and parcel to the Moroccan Empire's flag. Your state seal. So you got your Constitution, your flag, your state seal. Also the name of your state. What else? You need elections. You must elect your 3 branches of government. Your legislative branch gets elected. Your head of state gets elected, and your judicial branch gets elected. Your Minister of Foreign Affairs, your Consul General, your Sutra, which is your Minister of Defense, etc. All those positions are appointed by the Wazir al-Reis, or the Prime Minister, the head of state. But however many people you've got to you have to establish an election to elect your 3 branches of government. And through that process, you want to document it. Remember, documentation beats conversation every time. How do you document your election? Through your ballots. So you need your Constitution, your flag, your seal, the name of your state, your elections, and the ballots to go along with it. Your oath of allegiance, signed by the chief judge, kept for your records, alongside of your ballots. right? Your public inauguration that needs to be recorded and promulgated. Promulgating, keep in mind, Morse, promulgation is nothing more than letting the world know that you exist. In the business world, the term would be marketing, advertising. In the world of government, it's called promulgation. So you record it, upload it to YouTube, establish a YouTube channel that represents the media department of your state, upload it to that. Now you have your public inauguration that can be viewed by the world by simply clicking on a link that takes them to your inauguration on YouTube. That's your promulgation. So you need your Constitution, state flag, state seal, state name, right? Your elections, the ballots to go along with your elections, your oath of allegiance, signed by the judge of the state. You follow? Your public inauguration. And then you draft a document called the Declaration of Independence or Declaration of Statehood. Within that correspondence, within that document, you will add to it the link to your public inauguration. So the link that you establish by posting it on YouTube, that link goes on your Declaration of Statehood or Declaration of Independence document. Now you compiled all those items. So you compile all your exhibits, your oath of your Constitution that's ratified by the competent authorities of your state. Your state flag, your state seal, obviously your ballots wouldn't be a part of it. Your oath of allegiance could be a part of it. In fact, we added that as part of our package. Right? And then the cover letter to all those documents or that compiled package, the cover letter for that will be your Declaration of Independence or your Declaration of Statehood with a link that points the reader to your public inauguration. You package it all up real pretty with a nice bow tie on it. Or I don't know if I said it right, not the bow tie, but little bow, whatever, like it's a present, right? You package it up real pretty with a bow. Send it to the United Nations. That's your depository and promulgation. So you have your Constitution ratified. Now you deposit it with the Secretary General of the United Nations, along with those several other documents, with the Declaration of Statehood being the cover letter for that package that directs them to your public inauguration. But you won't stop there. Once you deposit it with the United Nations, according to Article 102 of the Charter, you then promulgate it further with the United States, President of the United States of America as well, but the President represents the United States and the United States of America and the United States. And then you also promulgate it with the governor of the territory that you have reclaimed through your Constitution. So that means then you'd have 3 of those packages. And the Declaration of Statehood is addressing each one of those entities. So you would have one that's addressing Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Another one that would be addressing Biden. And the other one would be addressing whoever the governor is. 3 packages. We call it the Circle 7 of Facts, coined by J. Jermaine Beck. It's really 7 documents in that package, the Circle 7 of Facts. And you deposit it with the United Nations and promulgate it with the United States and the governor of the territory that you have reclaimed. Did you guys get what I said? Did you understand what I said? Do you have any questions or comments in regards to the process that I just laid out for you, all the boxes that you need to check? I yield.
No questions here.
Islam, I have a question. This brother Yusuf Kadi Unami.
Oh, Islam, brother Youssef, how you doing, good brother?
Everything's all well. Everything's well. So when you were just reading Udi Pasadeus, and it said it originated in Roman law, and you didn't elaborate more on if it originated in Roman private law. That's different from international law. So that kind of like was confusing to me.
Islam. Me? Can you all hear me?
Islam.
Yeah, the reference point is up. You see over here on the right, at the bottom, it did say that it originated in Roman private law. I
Right.
don't know why it says that it originated in Roman private law when the term uti possidetis juris is Latin in it of itself. Keeping in mind that the ancient Romans are who? Moors. So I could hear your concern about what is in the confusion as it relates to the origination being Roman private law.
Well,
However,
private law is different from international law. That's just what I'm getting at. They were specific about private law in international law, international being public to the public, and
Exactly.
private being specific to being private, just as aka the corporations, like they're private right now. So they would be practicing Roman law if we want to put it like that. So, but I get what you're saying as we're the ancient ones, and we can go by many names. But the name that we go to is by the treaties, supreme law of the land. And
That's
just like
correct.
silver leader mortuus means dead in the eyes of the law, it explains the what the phrase actually means too. As you possess, so you shall possess. So I mean, it's just a little confusing on just the language and the whole Udi Datus Juris and its origination and just how we're applying it to what's going on. And it said even right here, Udi Datus Juris is modified from Udi Datus, created from the form of avoiding terris nullis, which means no man's land, I believe. The origin version of Udi Datus is a Roman law. So it's like if we're studying international law, this kind of like goes against that. It says, and even during the medieval period that's around 1600s, we're way ancient than the 1500s. So it's just a little confusing, this whole Udi Datus juris stuff, especially when documentations beats conversation any day of the week. So it's just like when you're well studied and these phrases come up, and then we have litigation, we have resources, and we have stuff to do that. It's just it's confusing. It's really confusing. So when you read it, I wasn't going to, I didn't see it, but from when you read it, it just dawned on me that it was a difference in that.
I hear you, and I hear you clearly. And the confusion comes from you're still in the Moors are still in the learning curve of understanding all these different principles. I mean, the term is uti possidetis juris. Who's ever even heard that term? And it's in Latin. Let me go back to where I was. Uti possidetis juris or uti possidetis iuris, Latin for as you possess under law, is a principle of international law. You see? So it's irrelevant what it says down here about Roman and any, I don't care about all that.
Well, we can't say that. We're Moors. We have to use Moorish forensics. We can't say that doesn't matter because the history is what was taken from us. And language, and we know that language is the main vehicle that they use to disguise and to denationalize, to take our status, change our status, based on these pseudo words and their origin. So if we're talking about etymology, that's the origin of words. We believe in that. So why would we ever not look at the origin of any of these things? And if it's just saying simply as you possess, so you shall possess, and then it's highlighting Roman law, I mean, it's just kind of, it's just very, very, confusing to me, I mean, anyone who can read, you know, just as you say that you can see, I mean, I'm sure the 29 people in here, 28 people can also be attend to that as well. Like, I mean, if we are the Moors and we're the ancient ones and our pen is superior to everyone in the world, then, I mean, even if that, we have even in our treaty to outline what uti possideus even defines in our vocabulary, because they're not the say of the end of all saying.
Islam. The reason why I'm saying it doesn't matter that if it says Roman law. The reason why I'm saying that it doesn't matter is because we're not living in those medieval times or those medieval Roman times. You may say that it's the foundation to it, but what is the current understanding of uti possideus jurisdiction is what we need to focus on. What is it? What is the principles today? How is it defined today? Because today, the cares of the world that we are dealing with is dealing with today, not medieval times. So yes, I get what you're saying in regards of the origin of it. Keeping in mind that when you're talking about medieval times, you're talking about our principles. 1500s, we were the ones that were in power at that time. So yes, the origin, according to this, you know, like you said earlier, forensics is important, right? The etymology and the origins of the words are important. But then you also.
So is it okay to just be dismissive of that big word that says Roman law?
I'm not saying to be dismissive of it. What I'm saying is what is the principles today? We're not dismissing the fact that
uti possideus, none of us don't speak Latin. So let's go to what it actually means. I mean, because if we just read to what the actual meaning means, for as you possess under the law.
You see what I just highlighted?
Right, absolutely. Right. So it means something, but what does that actually say? That's not a sentence. That's an action. So
as a principle of hold on, brother Hakeem, I'm gonna give you
but you're being selective of what because I can go right down to the history and then you're going to go right back up there. So that's why I'm saying it's confusing. I'm not debunking what you're saying.
Slow down 1 second, brother. Hold on, slow down 1 second. Let me control this narrative. You're not allowing me to finish what I'm trying to say. Every time I say something, you jump in and try to correct it. My question to you is this, good brother. How long have you been studying international law?
10 years.
You've been studying international law.
I've been studying this. I didn't claim to be a Moorish American. I did my due diligence before I got into this. So I've been taking my time, you know, learning law, learning legalese, learning, all parts of history. So it's not just, you know, like I just came across this information.
I don't need the word salad. Huh? I asked you a specific question, good brother.
Right, I'm trying to. We're having a conversation. You asked me a question. I'm gonna answer it the best of my way.
Good brother, I asked you how long have you been studying international law?
Okay,
that's the question.
Okay, okay. At the time, I didn't know that international law was what I was studying, but I was studying law. I mean, I didn't have a term for it. That's what I'm saying. I've been studying so many different things, brother, that I didn't have necessary these terms to go with it. But as I came across different brothers, they were able to, you know, oh, that's what that was. You know what I'm saying? I've been going to school all my life. I've been to the University of Texas Tech. I'm well studied. I'm well traveled. I mean, so I speak to a lot of different people. So when I'm saying this, I'm speaking from a person of well traveled, a person who's been passionate about fixing this for a very long time. And a person who has dedicated his life to this. I don't have kids. I don't have no wife. This is what I do. I wake up every day and I study, brother. So I mean, just to give you.
I'm not questioning that.
Right. No, but the way you're coming off, you're like being hostile, and I'm just saying.
Not being hostile.
Is a modified term. We're reading this right now. This is right in front of you. Uti possideus juris is a modified term.
I want to get back to the question that I asked, brother.
Okay, no problem.
The question that I asked was specifically asking,
yes,
how long have you been studying?
And I said 10 years, but you like, but why are we getting even off of that?
Allow me
What
to
we're-
finish the- See, you're
I
not
said 10
allowing me to
years, 10
finish.
years,
I want to
brother, 10
identify
years.
what, I heard you say 10 years. Now let's identify what's been, because you said you also mentioned municipal laws and all these other laws, which is not
Yes,
international
we all
law.
been through that. Statute, we learned statutes,
That's
mandates,
not
all that stuff.
international law is my point, good brother. That's not
but
international law.
I understand what you're getting to, or what you're trying to allude to, brother. But what you're getting off topic of is
We're
this says
going back
"Uni
to that topic,
possible
brother.
jury."
Brother, the reason why I'm asking what I'm asking is because you're challenging something
I'm not challenging anything. I'm saying that I'm
Islam, can I interject? Can the mother interject?
Islam.
Brother
Islam.
Hakeem has something to say real quick. Brother Hakeem, go ahead, good brother.
Islam. Is my audio coming through clearly? Because I want everything to be heard.
Absolutely.
Very clear. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. I would highly recommend that Moors don't get stuck on a single terminology that was used in whatever ancient period of time, or in 200, 300, 500, 1,000 years ago, right? All words have an origin. All law has an origin. It doesn't matter if it originated 10,000 years ago or yesterday. Okay? It's how it's being used in international law that matters. How is China using this? How is South Africa using this? How are all the other nations of the world using this principle, this component of international law?
Do you want me to answer that?
Have you looked
Yes.
into that?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
the way how they exercise that is pretty much with the like, because Udi Passages is a Roman law. So pretty much where that came from is when they start colonizing. So that was their fight.
We got the
That was their-
origin. How is it being used in international law today? Because
Right.
again,
This is
it's a
that's what I'm
customary.
getting. I'm building to it, brother. Like y'all want to tweet. I'm not a tweeter.
No, because I was in the middle of
do that.
talking and then you asked
Don't
a
do
question.
that. Don't do that. Don't call people what you think.
So-
No, don't do that. Don't mock anyone.
I didn't mock any. I just said I'm not a tweeter. I spoke
Nobody
specifically
here
about
is a
me.
tweeter. No
I don't
one
know
here is a
who-
tweeter.
I don't
Go
know
ahead.
who
All right,
tweets.
so let me get back to this.
Anyway,
Because,
what I
again,
was
this is
getting to,
very
brother,
important.
what
Hold on.
to answer your
Please,
question
please
is
hold on.
they,
Please
This
hold
is the
on.
problem right here. The
Because
brother.
you've been interrupting enough.
Exactly.
The last thing we
Exactly.
need is to be disrupted, stuck on a word that's being customarily used by all other nations that are using it in international law. And we're stuck on it because it originated from some place, from
right.
some nation of people that for whatever reason, we feel like it's unfit for our use because it originated from them.
But that's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying to explain. They defined it in their constitution, what Udi Passages mean to them. That's what litigation is.
And it's being used in international law today, however it's being defined.
Exact by that particular state, brother. That's what I'm trying to get to you.
So
Every
okay,
state
so
can
then
interpret.
if that's the case,
Yes,
if
if you
you
read it,
would
it's right
like,
there.
if you would like, then redefine that and have all the other nations of the earth use your definition.
No, that's not
Otherwise,
what
we're
I'm
going to
saying.
use the customary international law definition of uti possidetis juris.
Again, it originated in Roman law, and if you keep searching, it says that when you go to court, it's applied to how you use it within your constitution. How you word your things, just like it says, "As you have, so you shall possess." That's what it means. So it's the person who's doing the work. So say me and you claim a certain state, and I'm the one actually doing the work. I got the people behind me. I'm doing this, but we both got the same paperwork. We both checked the boxes, but I got the people, I got everything behind me. So shall you have, so shall you possess. That's where that phrase comes from. That's what I'm trying to get you guys to see.
So the solution to that, because I hear the problem.
There's no solution. I'm not trying to be combative.
There is a solution because you're pointing out a problem. So there has to be a solution to it, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so the solution is for Moors, whatever state you create, redefine that and have that definition be used on the international stage.
True, true, true.
That's a solution.
Yes,
So can we
absolutely.
please move forward
but
with the lesson?
right, but that's what I'm saying. But that's the confusion. You can't have a lot of people who don't understand a lot of this information, and then you say, oh, that says it's found in an origin is in Roman law, but you just blew past and said, no, that doesn't matter. Like, and I'm sitting here trying to like really get to the bottom of this, understanding of this, because I've been reading this for the last couple of days, and it's like, what are people even talking about with this Udi Pasadeus when its origin is not even founded in Moroccan law? I could see if it said Moroccan law or international law. That's this. They said it says now applied. So who made that decision of taking it from Roman private law? These are the questions that my brain goes through. So I'm sorry if this seems like I'm being confrontational, but I have legit questions.
It's not that
this is a
it's
study
not
question.
just that you're being
So I asked the question.
confrontational. It's not just that you're being confrontational. It's that you're solely focusing on, oh, this is the
No,
origin
I didn't
of it.
solely focus on that, brother. I asked the question. He asked, I waited to the time where he asked, did anybody have any questions about anything he said? And I asked that question. How did I be any type of disrespectful?
I just provided the solution to the problem. So what else is there to discuss
And
about that
but
particular topic?
brother, you're being short with me when I was respectful the whole time. You're saying like I'm being, I waited for the appropriate time to answer my question, ask my question. And then it's like now I'm being bombarded for asking a proper question. It says its origin in Roman law. Anytime anything else this brother reads, he goes back and reads it over and reads it and then reiterates it, breaks it down. He read that and then he just kind of went past it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just wait to a time where the floor is open, and that's what I did. But so I'm being confrontational, or that's what you're alluding
Has
to.
the issue been addressed for you?
It's not an issue. It's not an issue with me. It's never been. But I wanted to get clarification.
Has that point that you brought up been addressed?
I yield. Because again, it hasn't been answered. It's unclear.
Okay, so I just provided the solution.
No, I've already had that answer, bro. I brought that solution already there. You didn't do anything.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
It's Islam. I yield.
Islam. So it says here, uti possidetis juris has been applied in modern history to such regions as South America, Africa, the Middle East, and the Soviet Union, and numerous other regions where centralized governments were broken up, where imperial rulers were overthrown, or where League of Nations mandates ended, e.g. Palestine and Nauru. It is often applied to prevent foreign intervention by eliminating any consented terra nullius, or no man's land, that foreign powers could claim, or to prevent disputes that could emerge with the possibility of redrawing the borders of new states after their independence. So what is a dispute that could emerge with this possibility? All right. So the Carolina Moors, you got three Moors, three branches of government: the Wazir, the legislative branch, the executive branch. These three Moors live in North Carolina. And they decide that because it's the Carolinas, it's all the Carolinas, they're going to take over North Carolina as well as South Carolina. What happens then? Okay. Well, there's Moors in South Carolina. And the Moors in South Carolina, they may have wanted to establish their own autonomous state based on their own human rights of self-determination. But that ability and that option was taken away by three Moors. Now we're dealing with just cogence violations, because just cogence deals with human rights. So that means that those three Moors have taken away the human rights of the Moors in South Carolina to their right to self-determination, to establish their states in their territory, right?
How?
So now, you said how?
Yes, sir. Because as long as they check the boxes, I don't have, we don't have to go to anybody to check the boxes. You check the boxes, you go to the United Nations. We don't get any recognition from it. We all have to follow the steps. And that's just the truth of it. And once your longitude, your latitude, the people, your permanent territory defines your state. So so these things that we're saying again are holding on to, they aren't really built in lawful terms until we come back with our own pens and really correct a lot of stuff. So if you got a brother in South Carolina and the people in North Carolina don't get it, and they say, well, I got family up there, so I'm going to sit there and protect everybody. It's Moroccan law nonetheless. So even when those people in North Carolina do wake up and say, oh, we finally do realize that we got rights and we got a nationality, it's already done. That brother already did the work. So now they just wake up and they sit there and now they do their studies, they do their learning. We're not even supposed to be bickering. We're supposed to be helping each other. That's how I got through 86 videos, by telling us we're going to work together, right?
Mm-hmm. So the Moors in South Carolina, they're supposed to just fall back and just be okay with the fact that 3 Moors have taken over 2 states, which includes their state. According to you.
But they didn't even know that they had a state, brother. You get what I'm saying? They didn't know that they had a state. So that brother looked out.
No, time out. You stole a pen from me. I didn't know you stole the pen from me, so that makes it right?
No, he didn't steal. He checked the boxes, brother. No, you went off topic. He checked the boxes.
You're saying that they didn't know about the fact that
how do you know if someone knows though, brother?
This is the problem with you that I'm noticing. You are a over talker.
A conversation goes 2 ways. You talk a lot, so I want to be able to have a conversation. You know, I want to make sure that everything is
brother.
Interjection.
Hold on, brother. I would appreciate it if you fall back and relax.
I'm calm, brother. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I would appreciate it for you to fall back and relax.
I'm very relaxed.
Me and over talking those who are speaking.
I'm not over talking anybody. I'm simply proving my point, just like you're proving your point.
You're doing it right now.
On the time where we're supposed to be talking about study floor, open session. I did not
Objection.
I did not
Wazir, could you please?
Hold on, brother. All the classes that we've had, we've never had this problem. Now we got someone here who claims
because you have someone challenging you. You have someone challenging what you're saying. That's why.
Anything. The challenges that you're presenting are.
No, it's that it says Roman law, brother. It's that it says Roman law.
Who was the brother that had an interest, a point of interest? Let him speak.
It was me.
No, someone else had a point of interest, good brother. Please go ahead, brother. Who had the point of interest? Okay, so it is not, it is, go ahead.
Yeah, so there was someone else that did have a point of interest, but I'll say this while I have the floor. For me, at least, it's obvious the brother is here to argue his points. As he said, he's challenging you, right?
Clarification is
No.
Hold on. I want to know because I know this is being recorded. So let's clarification. I wanted to be clear on what was meant.
You're very argumentative.
No, I care about my Moors.
Prove your point.
I care about my Moors. I care about my Moors.
You're here to prove your point, as you said.
You said something during your lecture. Roman law. I know that's private law. You got mad that I'm challenging you because you read something.
About you challenging anybody.
You read something, but I'm saying, brother, you read something and I called you out on it. That's the only disagreement right now.
Interjection, yourself. There's a procedure called effective communication.
Yes.
Effective communication is you give the party their chance to exercise all they got to say, and then you rebut or state after. If every time a brother try to say something, you interject, then it's going to be a disruptive dialogue and it's going to sound combative.
Exactly.
So no one is excluding you from saying, but just hear the brother saying, and then they're going to respectfully give you your chance to speak. It's effective communication.
Something that the good brother lacks. He lacks effective communication. His point has to be made. He has to be heard. So Go ahead and say what you got to say so that we can hear your voice again, good brother, because you like to hear yourself speak. We're all listening. Go ahead.
Thank you, but it's no need for the sarcasm, guys. I'm really being honest. Like again, I've been doing this work by myself. You know what I'm saying? So when I came across the noble Moors that I did, I already knew where I already knew where home was. You know what I'm saying? So for me to sit there and come and ask a question off of something that you read during your class that I know off of that international law is very specific and that is different from Roman law. Now, if something says its origin is in Roman law, I can't just sit there and turn a blind eye to that and act like that doesn't mean anything. And for any brothers that's sitting there acting like, even it says right here, South America, like these are general terms. Africa, that land over there is Al-Qaeda land. So it's like we have to even like look past all these other colonial terms. If we really want to come back and run the world and be able to be in these seats of be in charge, we got a whole youth behind us, and they're like looking. I'm telling them that I'm working with some noble people to sit there and fix our conditions, schools and stuff like that. But we're sitting here talking about Udi Pasadeus Juris, and then other things that aren't even about restoring the schools, like the big stuff. Like the big stuff, like we get all this stuff in Jay Jermaine's, class. So I'm very tuned. I probably watched all those 86 class almost probably 3 or 4 times because I have the time like that. So I'm very studied. So I'm not being disrespectful. I'm meeting Moors every day. And once my school is built, because I'm building a school, and once that's built, I'm going to have the people to sit there and send your way, Colorado's way, Oregon's way. I'm going to build the whole states, all of them. It's no selfish stuff. I'm going to die doing this. I'm going to die doing this. I already know how I'm going to leave. This is what I'm telling you. I'm committed to this. So what I'm saying is when something says Roman law, brother, I can't sit there and turn a blind eye to it because I got 1,000 people following, listening, hanging on to every word that I say. And then if I sit there and bring this to them, they be like, yo, Yusuf, that say Roman law, bro. I'm from Philly. They don't play that. But that say this, they going tooth and nail. They're going to hang on to every word. And if I was to sit there and give that to my brothers and sisters, and they know me, they'd be like, "Well, this say Roman law. You told us that that's the ops. That's the bad. Talking like them. But that's the bad people. Then now I have to. How do I recover from that? That's why I'm asking you guys, and then you guys are getting at me. But I'm out there with my feet on the ground.
No. Anybody
talking to the Moors.
Right. Okay. So you had the floor. You had ample time to express yourself.
It's not even about expressing myself, bro. I'm talking to you. It is if you can't hear what I'm saying, then bro, like or feel where I'm coming from, then I mean it's just that. I tuned in your class last week. I've been watching y'all classes all the time. Who's the brother from Illinois? I sent him from him watching my classes on Seek Heed. I sent people your way, brother. You really don't know who I am.
Okay, fair enough.
A lot of the people that you know, I send your way. Oh, go to AMPAG, because the brother here, he's real good. Or go to Illinois, or whichever one. You know what I'm saying? I've been really doing the work for us. Y'all don't know me, but I've been doing the work, guys. Like I'm building a school and I have everything planned for us. So it's like we fighting against each other, but I can't sit there and not hold our old heads accountable, because our old heads let us down where I'm from. Our old heads let us down.
Oh, Islam, good brother. Can I have the floor back, please?
You have the floor. It's a conversation, bro. Don't treat me like that.
I'm allowing you to speak. I'm just letting you speak.
But it's have a conversation. You can interject, brother. It's a conversation.
No. I'm gonna let you. No, I'm not gonna interject because I don't want to set that precedent for you to do the same. I'm trying to set a new precedent. Whereas
it's not. But it's not a precedent. I
see where we're at with this.
Because I'm used to a conversation. That's what adults do. I have a conversation, and this isn't even a formal.
So speaking of sarcasm, let's end that right now.
Please.
Okay. Now I get where you're coming from, but again, you have to comprehend that the way you're speaking, the way you're interjecting all the time is combative, and it is argumentative.
I'm sorry.
Now the way we've been doing things here is somebody speaking, everybody's on mute. Okay, when you have a chance to interject and say what you have to say, right? But don't just interrupt people while they're speaking.
I didn't do that though, brother. But
you have been doing that
all the time,
and you've been speaking over people.
You've been doing that.
So
say what
I
you
get what you're saying, and yeah, much props to you for all that you've been doing, but don't think that the way you do things is gonna dictate how we run this
Right,
study session.
that's in vice versa, correct. But what I'm saying is where this got off track is because of the difference on Roman law and the difference of that. Other than
No,
that,
no, 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 no.
we didn't have any beef. We didn't have any, it's
There
still no
is no
beef.
beef.
It's still no beef. You're right. There's just still no beef. I'm just saying, but that's where things went array because I asked a question about
Let me
Roman law.
clarify this. Let me clarify this real quick, because you did ask your question. You did say what you have to say. You did explain what you had to explain. Now, you pointed out whatever you pointed out, right? You made your point, and the solution was provided. You said that you already had the solution, right?
Yes, that's what I told
The
you.
issue was discussed on the forum. Everybody heard it. Everybody who's gonna watch the video is gonna hear it, right? The solution was provided. So then what else on that particular topic do we need to talk about aside from continuing to point out the problem? Because that's interrupting the study session. Now we've gone on for at least 30 minutes
is a
now
study
on
session.
this
If you don't
one
know
issue.
something, then that's
That's
what
the
we're
problem.
studying.
We've gone on for 30 minutes on this one
Okay,
issue that we've already had the solution for. We've already said the solution for this one issue.
Right,
So
bro.
then
See,
can we
but
move forward?
we could then
And
move
this
forward.
one
He
issue
asked,
be resolved when that solution can be implemented by a more state government.
you're right, brother. I see where this is going. I'm gonna just exit the class because I see that if this is a class, I'm on TikTok every day and I have people asking me questions. You think I can just avoid people? I'm good because if this is how your study classes go, where someone presents a question and I have to get this much turmoil, I don't have to go through this, Morris.
You really do
Islam,
not, brother.
respect
You
that.
really do not. Islam, appreciate your presence. Islam, good brother. So to continue. So the question was posed about how is it that the Moors from North Carolina are infringing upon the rights of the Moors in South Carolina. Not really sure why that question was posed. It's obvious, but let's go into it further. Every Moor in every territory, whether they know about Moorish science or not, whether they know about statehood or not, still have a reserved right to their self-determination, whether their knowledge come to be 10 years later, 5 years later, or 20 years later. It's irrelevant. We all have our right to self-determination, and we are all going through what's called our varying stages of advancement. That includes your knowledge base. So just because 3 Moors in North Carolina are aware of statehood and the rest of the Moors in South Carolina are not aware yet of, or not yet aware as it relates to statehood and international law, doesn't make it okay for you to just take over both territories and take away the rights of those Moors in South Carolina from being able to establish their states. That's a jus cogens violations. The whole concept about Roman law and private law, yeah, okay, I get it. How is it being used today? This is not the medieval period of the time that this is actually Wikipedia, by the way, that Wikipedia is expressing this. The bottom line is that uti possidetis jurisdiction is a customary norm of international law today. And if the Moors in South Carolina come back 5 years later with a competent claim to restore their territory in South Carolina, now you have what's called a frontier dispute between the North Carolina Moors and the South Carolina Moors. So you got the South Carolina Moors who finally came to the light in the knowledge and understanding of international law and statehood. They established those principles. They checked the boxes that we just talked about: flag, seal, constitution, etc. Right? Now they can make a competent claim against the Moors in North Carolina. How would they do that? They would potentially take them to the ICJ. They could take them to the ICJ. And if they take them to the ICJ, the international judges, 15 of them in the International Court of Justice, would find the Moors in North Carolina guilty because they violated the principles of uti possidetis jurisdiction. It's irrelevant if it came from Roman law. The point is that it's being exercised today on the international stage. That's the bottom line. And so if you are erudite, you wouldn't come with that confusion. If you say that if you say you've been studying for 10 years and it hasn't been international law, you're just coming into international law, then your erudition is not enough to fully understand these principles. This is the reason why the good brother's been expressing his confusion, and he keeps bringing up the old paradigm mindset of, oh, that's private Roman law. Okay, but what is it today?
May I add also, is it not true that if we look at the different ethnicity of brotherhood globally, we can all say that these men who Roman, are also antiquity Moors?
That's exactly correct. That's our law.
Islam.
That's exactly correct. That's our law. That's what I was saying. You're talking about medieval times, that's Moorish times. See, they don't want to say Moroccan law. That's actually Moroccan law, not Roman law. Roman law is Moroccan law because Rome, Italy, is in Morocco. You see? But when you when you don't allow people to speak and you become combative and you overtalk people, this is where it turns into a debate because the other person is trying to clarify what he was trying to say in the first place, but he wasn't allowed to speak because you want to blah 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 blah. You want to give up a whole word salad and insult people's intelligence while you're at it. The question was specific. How long have you been studying international law? There hasn't been no 10 years because municipal laws and all those other laws is not international law. International law is treaties, conventions. So if you've been studying for 10 years, then you should be able to rattle off at the top of your head all the articles or several articles in each one of these treaties. I could assure you the brother couldn't do it. Dialogue is you speak, I listen, then when it's my turn, I speak, you listen. And you got to allow the person to fully express themselves. Because if you cut somebody off mid-sentence, then he didn't get a chance to get everything out. The thought is gonna be lost. So when I was trying to explain why it's not good for the North Carolina Moors to take over South Carolina, here he goes interrupting, and it turned into this whole other thing about building schools. Keeping in mind that's not the process that we're undertaking. We're not here to build schools. We're here to institute reforms to re-educate everyone based in not the same school system, but in other words, instituting reforms to revamp, to fix the current education system, which means you don't have to build schools. What you have to do is hire new teachers or re-educate the current teachers to teach the proper information. But back to the subject matter, which is uti possidetis jurisdiction, which there's no confusion there. So
before you continue, by no means do I want to assume the worst of the brother, but we Moors, especially we Moors who are on the path to statehood, we have to be mindful of any attempt to come in and cause confusion.
That's correct.
Right? Because when you're on the right path, that's when things start going south because people want to hinder your progress. You feel me?
That's correct.
So
And
be mindful of
added to
that.
that, if I may, we got to be the intellectually, I wouldn't even say divine, I say intellectually cognizance of where and when we present certain things. Now, if I personally had an issue with a moderator, then I'll take it into consideration to deal with that issue off the platform, because there could be a new, let me say, member, for lack of word, on the platform whom are just embryonally learning. And the last thing you want to present is a division amongst something that can evolve in such a great outcome. So we got to be very tactful as we proceed, and be respectful and mindful of each other, and try to deal with things on a diplomatic level. Raheel.
I appreciate that. And let me point out, okay, for you all on the line and anyone who's listening, including Unami Buffalo Nation, the reason for his concern, the reason for his energy, the reason for his position is because Unami Buffalo Nation has made an attempt to claim 3 territories at one time, which would be Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We've had 2 discussions with the state regarding the matter. One 2 or 3 weeks ago, and another one today with the Wazir alone. The Wazirs of the roundtable with the Wazir of Unami Buffalo Nation. And so it appears Sister Yeshrin, the Hajib, Minister of Foreign Affairs for Unami, had discussions with Sister Nova, because they're trying to gain certain pieces of information to continue checking the boxes. But they're being blocked. Why is it that they're being blocked? Because we do not agree, and we will not allow any Moors coming online to do whatever it is that they want to do. We have to follow the strict sense of international law. Do we all have the right to self-determination? Are we all interdependent states, or should I say independent states? Or do we have our own autonomous functions? Yes. What does that mean, y'all? Pay attention. Any one of the states that come online and establish their states can do as they see fit, whatever they can do, whatever they want. They can do as they please. In the same token, though, however, we don't have to recognize you. And when I say we, I'm referring to the states and the Moors who have already been through the mud, who've already been through the fire, who's already got the experience. Me, personally, as the Wazir of AMPAG, I have to deal with a frivolous impeachment. The stuff got ugly in our state. The same thing happened with Amir in New Mecca. And we already know the problems that AMPAG has been dealing with, and is still dealing with it till today. However, AMPAG are the beacons of light. We need the consular court orders from AMPAG. Can we do it ourselves? Yes. So, any other state who may not want to conform with the governance of the Wazir Roundtable to set the standards of excellence for the Moors in Morocco, if they don't want to follow those principles, they can go their own direction and do as they please. They can pull out the books, they can pull out the treaties, they can pull out the resolutions, they can pull out the conventions and study. They can pull out the charters and study to identify and determine how to put together consular court orders and how to enforce those consular court orders. You have the right determination. You got the right to self-determination and do it yourself. But if you're seeking mentorship, if you're seeking assistance from those who've already done it, then it will behoove you to conform to the rules and the regulations that's being established by that body politic. We deserve that respect, keeping in mind that it's not a dictatorship. It is a matter of not allowing Moors to do whatever the hell they think they want to do. That's exactly what has slowed up our progress all this time. Mixing up old paradigm stuff with the new paradigm, it's ridiculous with Moors. It's difficult to just easily just fall back and just trust Moors. Moors have to be governed, period. And I'm just making that point clear for everyone on the line. If you don't want to fall in line with the principles that's been set forth by the Wazir Roundtable, keeping in mind that upon recognition, the Wazir of your state becomes a member of the Roundtable. If you don't want to fall in conformity with the principles that's being laid out, by all means, do you, as they say in the streets. But if you want to partake in unity, state unity, uniformity, because that's important. We need uniformity. Then you will follow along with these principles, keeping in mind that the same person who has inspired you all to come into statehood and international law is behind the scenes with all this. That would be J. Jermaine Bey. His spirit is in the right place. He's not just some average person. He's a subject matter expert. The man was in mergers and acquisitions. The brother understands contract and how to enforce contract. If you know best, then do as you please. But if you see the value in establishing a standard of excellence for Morocco, then this is where you would want to be. This is where we want you to be, because trust and believe. I speak for J. Bey. I speak for DeAndre Dre Bey, which is the Wazir of AMPAG. I speak for Amir, which is the Wazir of New Mecca. I speak for Maru and Akil, the Wazir in all the other states. We want standards, high standards, excellence in all that we do. Why? Because coming out of conquest, we've got to be almost perfect in order to take down the United States. We cannot give room. We don't have room for mistakes. Even worse, egregious mistakes. So what's going to happen when you deposit your constitution with the United Nations, which is filled with international jurists that clearly understand international law, and your constitution in the Dominion section is violating uti possidetis jurisdiction? It's going to be noticed from the very beginning. It's going to raise a red flag. So when those Moors in South Carolina finally wake up to make a proper claim and they take them to the ICJ, it's a lost battle for North Carolina. They're going to have to relinquish the jurisdiction without any interruptions. That happened in a Burkina Faso versus Mali case. So since the brother has been studying international law for 10 years, I challenge him to tell me about that's where I was going. He didn't allow it to go there though. Tell me about the Burkina Faso versus Mali case, since you've been studying international law. Because that's the reference point. That's res judicata. It's based in well-settled principles, and that was adjudicated in 1986, not in the 1500s during so-called Roman law. This was in 1986. Meaning, it's been a recent case dealing with this matter. I'm making this point clear for Unami Buffalo Nation to listen when they go back and listen to this video, if they go back and listen to this video, because it is obvious that they have a problem with relinquishing that jurisdiction. They want to claim it all as what it appears to be, especially with this brother, the Qadi, who came online with this foolishness. And if that's the case, it's already been set forth through the Wazir of Unami Buffalo Nation that if they do not scrap what they have done and do things in conformity with international law and uti possidetis jurisdiction, they will not be recognized by us, and that's just the bottom line. You may go on and do as you please. You have that right to self-determination. But now we're dealing with division. whereas we're promoting unity. But unity has to be based in the respect for the Wazirs who came before you, who've been through the mud, who's been through the dirt, who's been studying. I personally been studying for over a year and a half, specifically international law, not no type of any other law, the supreme law of the land, which is treaties and international law. I talk to Jay Bay all the time, and he's constantly pouring more and more information into me, putting me to do more homework and stuff. I got to go read all these other documents to identify these principles. So if you're just coming into statehood and you don't know about international law and statehood, and you're learning, you're learning these principles, and it behooves you to just follow along and continue studying the reference points, and don't get caught up in some semantic word such as Roman law, because trust and believe, it's Moroccan law. It's not even Roman law. So let me get back to my point. I had to speak on this real quick because I know where this is coming from. Go ahead, good brother.
Islam. I was just going to say, well said, and thank you for the clarification.
Islam, good brother. That's where it's coming from. And they have the right to self-determination. However, the Moors out of North Dakota, 3 Moors out of North Dakota, 6 Moors out of North Dakota cannot take over North, South Dakota, and all the other surrounding areas. It lacks political legitimacy. It violates uti possidetis jurisdiction. The principles or the reasons behind taking over those 3 territories, which is Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, is based in the historical events dealing with the Lenni Lenape Moors, which is understandable. However, the Lenni Lenape Moors were their territory extended way down to like Virginia somewhere. It's several more states than just those 3, way more. So why don't you 6 take over all that territory then? Or you just choose 2 or 3 actually. Why don't you just take over the entire territory? Because you can't. And if you can't do it with all those other territories, then you can't do it with those 2. Here's an idea, if they're listening, which I gave this idea to the Wazir, and I'm gonna give this to you all who may be considering this principle, this idea. Here's an idea that's based in well-settled principles, that's much more powerful than just taking over shit. Excuse my language. Excuse my language. But you all, in case you don't know, I don't play. I joke, I clown around, I like to have a good time, but when it's time to get serious, this is where you meet me. Here's a better idea, UNAMI. So if you want to take over those 3 jurisdictions, here's how you do it. Coming from someone who actually studies, who have been studying for over a year. You install 3 wazirs, 3 Sayarahas in Dalil Aziz legislative branch, and 3 judicial branches, qazis, judges, 3 judges, or let's say 3 judicial branches, to cover each one of those territories. So you'd have 3 branches of government in Delaware, you have 3 branches of government in Pennsylvania, and you have 3 branches of government in New Jersey. And those 3 states can now fall under the umbrella of UNAMI Buffalo Nation. And then UNAMI Buffalo Nation will fall under the authority of the greater Moroccan Empire. That's how that would work if you wanted to take over those territories. So I would suggest, as I've already suggested to the Wazir, don't limit yourself to just those 3 states. If you're dealing with the history of the Lenni Lenape Moors, then take over the entire territory, but do it based on the proper principles, which is to install several different branches of government in each one of those territories, and all those branches, or all those states will fall under the jurisdiction and the authority of UNAMI Buffalo Nation. Simple. Here's another example. Washita. Ouachita is not limited to Louisiana. The territory, the Ouachita territory is vast. It covers Louisiana and all the way on up to Canada. Okay. So each one of those territories can establish their 3 branches of government, and they all can fall under the ancient authority of the Ouachita Nation. And then the Ouachita Nation falls under the authority of the Moroccan Empire. This is how this has always been. We've always had all these other tribes. We've always had the Lenni Lenape. We had the Ouachita. We had this. We had that. We had the Seminoles. We had all, and they all fell under the jurisdiction of the mother. Who was the mother? The Moroccan Empire. But you cannot just go around claiming stuff because who you think you are. What about the Moors in that other territory? They have the right to self-determination as well. And it doesn't matter if they're not aware of the information today. They may come across it tomorrow. I don't care if they come across it 10 years from now. But once they come across it, they have the right to make a competent claim for their territory that they've been in for all their lives.
Islam.
Go ahead, brother.
And based on how it was being described by the brother earlier and the clarification you mentioned, if they were to continue down that path, essentially the other territories, they would be administering it in trust, so that the Moors in those territories, once they do come into the knowledge and they decide to reclaim that territory, that particular Moorish government would have to relinquish that territory to them. You know what I mean?
That's correct. Now here's another. You done?
No,
Okay.
Islam. I'm just ending.
Okay. So now here's another point. Yesterday I spoke with Sister Jana, Brother Nasik, and what was the other brother's name?
Brother Hak El.
Brother Hakel. In that conversation that we had yesterday, what came up, Brother Nasik?
I know I spoke on the claimant of various territory based on the antiquity demarcation, to which you clearly indicate why you overstand my concept, but why it's not an acceptable proposition based on the international layout or outline as to how one can reclaim their jurisdiction based on the modern demarcation created by colonialism.
Islam. So guess what? If we allow Unami Buffalo Nation to do it, then we would have to let y'all do it. Now, don't we? We got to be fair across the board. If they do that, it's going to open up a can of worms for Moors in Morocco to think they can just start taking over all kind of stuff that would lack political legitimacy. This is the reason why we have to set the standard, because if we don't, if we operate without the standards, then we're setting a negative precedent that we don't need, and it would backfire. Not only that, but our credibility would be shot, because we didn't recognize a body politic that's doing things that's not in line with international law, and we're supposed to be the ones that know better now, aren't we? So if we know better, we have to uphold those principles because we know better. You know better, you do better. You don't find loopholes. You don't try to circumvent stuff to your benefit. It has to be done with in full conformity with international law. By that way and in that way only. Otherwise, we're going to get challenged, and we cannot afford to be challenged. It's embarrassing. We have to do things right, man. That's just the bottom line, whether Moors like it or not. See, Moors don't want to be held accountable. Moors want to be able to do whatever it is they want under whatever auspices and whatever ideas that they have in their heads, whatever they claim they've been studying, whatever they claim they've been doing, none of which is necessarily relevant to international law and statehood. That's why none of that stuff has ever worked in the past 100 years. Keeping in mind, 100 years is a century. So uti possidetis jurisdiction, irregardless as to whether Wikipedia said that it's Roman law, what is the principles that's being laid out in that in that understanding as it relates to international law modernly today? Burkina Faso and Mali took place in 1986, not in the 1500s. The Latin American decolonization process that took place in, I think, what, the 1800s, early 1900s or something like that. Not in the 1514 medieval time. You must take back the territory as is. Now, once we take back control of the empire, because keep in mind, we've been asleep. The colonists took over. So now that we come back into light, come back into full life, we can't just expect for things to be how it was when we went to sleep. We were operating things basically lawless because there was no international law. We were the law. I, self, law, am master. We were the law. Our various emperors and sultans and kings and queens and etc. We were the law. Since our fall is where you now have what's called international law through the United Nations. It started with the diplomatic body. The diplomatic body turned into the League of Nations. The League of Nations turned into the United Nations. Prior to all that, there was no such a thing. We were the diplomatic body. We were the United Nations, and we still are today upon a competent claim. Which means once we take things back over, now we can start talking about redefining things and redoing things and doing things as we see fit. But you can't come into the game that has a set of rules and just break all the rules and do as you see fit because you want to do so. If you're playing in a chess match, well-settled principles say that the
white man move first.
Right, but the bishop moves diagonally. Right, on its own color. You got the white square bishop, you got the black square bishop. And they both move diagonally according to their color. What this brother is proposing, what I'm hearing from him and what I'm hearing from Unami Buffalo Nation is that, okay, yeah, I know that's what that says, but I want to move I want to move the black bishop vertically and horizontally. And I want to move the white square bishop diagonally, as the rules say, except I want it to be on the black squares. This is what they're proposing. This is exactly what they're proposing.
Yeah, it sounds as if the justification is coming from, well, we are the descendants of the original creators of the game, so we can change the rules to whatever we want. Exactly. Essentially. And all the other players who've been following the well-established rules have to comply with what we say. That's exactly. Kind of the metaphor I'm getting.
That's not kind of, that is.
It's low.
That is. Another excuse was, I'm here to protect our Moors. No, you are here to protect yourself. Everyone has the right to protect themselves. It's I, self, law, and master. The same way you came into the knowledge and you decided to take action to establish something for yourself and your posterity. These are the Moors have the same obligation. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the Treaty of Madrid, and the Act of Algeciras are based in obligations. The Treaty of Madrid, Article 15. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country must choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire. That's not a request. That's an obligation. Period. It didn't say all subjects of Morocco. It says any subject of Morocco. Each one of us have that obligation to choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire, period. And we must do it the right way. The days are gone where we're going to be doing things as we sit fit because of our consanguinity and we are the Moors and we are this and that. You ain't nothing. You ain't nothing till you show and prove to the world who you are by way of a competent pen. And what is a competent looks like? Following the instructions to the T. Not doing as you see fit. Not moving the bishop horizontal and vertical, because that's what you say it is, because you are the originator of the game. But yeah, we went to sleep and we forgot the game. So now that we come back as we see fit is how it's gonna go. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, Moors. That may work after we establish ourselves back into the international community. But that's not where we're at right now. We have to get to that point. Once we get to that point, we can have a roundtable meeting to discuss how we want to revamp all this stuff, put it back how we had it at first, and whatever it is that we want to do. But we first have to conquer the United States. We have to emerge out of conquest and take them down before we think we're going to be able to do any of these things. So that means that we have to stick to the strict sense of international law. I yield. Anyone else have any questions, comments, or concerns before we close out?
Yes, I would just like to say too, based on what the responsibility and obligation of being a government official entails, it is with wisdom that one shouldn't bite off more than he can chew, because now you are taking on the responsibility of making provision or aiding millions of people, if not close to billions, in a geographical region. So the question one should possibly ask him or herself is, am I qualified for such task? Do I have the team for such task? Do I have the resources for such task? And so there's a colloquial saying that says, do not bite off more than you can chew. I yield.
That's Islam. That's exactly correct. And that's why we need several interdependent states, because now there's a bunch of teeth that can chew off and a lot of stomachs that can, and throats that can swallow all this entire meal.
Islam.
Islam, Brother Abdul, in case you're there, we're not hearing you.
He might have got disconnected again.
I'm here. I'm just gonna throw my phone away. I'm just gonna operate from the computer. Y'all can still hear me?
Islam.
We can hear
Yeah,
you.
we got you now.
Okay, good, because I don't know what's going on with the connections in my phone. It keeps dropping out. However, okay, so back to the point that I was making. We have to be mindful of what we do. The colonists are watching. You can best believe that they're plugged into these calls every Sunday. You can best believe that they're watching the AMPAG study session. How do I know this? Well, AMPAG has ratified, deposited, and promulgated their constitution with the United Nations, the United States, and the governor of Colorado. New Mecca has done the same. AMPAG has done the same. Moru has done the same. DEMTI has done the same. AMPAG has done the same. Unami Buffalo Nation has done the same. And whoever else that I might be missing, I hope I'm not missing anyone, 7 of us thus far. Right? Which means there's 7 governors who has received a promulgation dealing with a ratified and deposited constitution. And Joe Biden in his office has received 7 of the same. They know who we are, Moors. So now they're watching us. This is not the Malcolm X, Martin Luther King days, where, excuse me, where ipso Joe Morris subjects were working out a movement. This is a new day. What am I saying, Moors? Let me pay attention to what I'm about to say here. Each one of our officials in each one of our states have a protection called diplomatic immunities, which means they cannot infringe upon our states. They cannot use use of force, and they can't even exercise espionage against our state. All that stuff is outlawed, especially as it relates to state-to-state relations. They might do that with the temple. They might be able to do that with an organization and an association and a club and whatever else you might want to establish, but they can't do that with the state. Now, that's not to say that they're not listening. That does not say that they're not practicing espionage. They're probably doing that, keeping it on the low, of course. Right? They have access to this, all these technology gadgets. They can get in and listen. And what are they listening for? The number one thing that they're looking for is self-destruction. They want us to implode from within because they know they can't do nothing from without, externally. They can't do nothing. They don't have political interest in Morocco. How do I know that? Roosevelt said it in his proclamation preceding the Act of Algeciras. Okay. Back to the reference point. Let's go to that reference point. Let's see. English into I think it's this one. This is it. Let's go to that reference point. They can't interfere. All they can do is just sit back and let us do what we're here to do. Okay, here it is. And whereas the said General Act and additional protocols were signed by the plenipotentiaries of the United States of America under reservation of the following declaration. The government of the United States of America having no political interest in Morocco and no desire or purpose having animated it to take part in this conference other than to secure for all peoples the widest equality of trade and privilege with Morocco. The government of the United States of America having no political interest in Morocco. Period. They don't have political interest in Morocco. We do as we see fit in Morocco as long as we're doing things coming from a competent authority, which is the competent states, which is your three branches of government, which is your consular court. And in that way only can the laws be made applicable to the nationals of the United States, so long as consular court is being exercised, period. Period, point blank. So they know about our operation. They know what's going on. They're watching. All they can do is just sit back and watch and hope and pray that we implode, that we self-destruct, because they cannot interfere. The only thing that they can do is stall and deny. And as they continue stalling and denying, it's just building up our case to take them to the ICJ, keeping in mind that every correspondence must also be deposited with the United Nations as proof on the record that these people are still exercising extraterritorial jurisdiction and they won't relinquish it pursuant to Public Law 856, which is United States legislation that states that the president must sign that bill to relinquish the jurisdiction when the time is appropriate. When is the time appropriate? When the Moors make a competent claim, Moors. Period. They have no political interest. So they're listening and they're looking for this type of drama. But we too strong over here, baby. There is no dirty Moor or any op or anything of that matter that's gonna derail this movement. This movement has been divinely ordained. All these Moors on the line, all these Moors with these states, all these wazirs and all these Qazis and Hajibs and Sayyarahas and Dalil Aziz, we are all here with our eyes wide open, seeing and knowing, putting the old Moors in the back. It's divine, say that again. It's divine timing. It's time released. Every last one of us that's part of these governments, even the ones on the line that are interested that may not be part of a government right now, have been ordained or divinely ordained. You're here on this call right now because the ancestors put you here. Many Bay is the Wazir of AMPAG because the ancestors made it so. J Bay is who he is because Allah said he's gonna do this. Nasir, the Qazi of Hunani Buffalo Nation, is there because the ancestors said that he must do this. We have a little friction right now, but order out of chaos. We've been dealing with chaos for quite some time now, and order is finally now being born in Morocco. And the Wazir Roundtable is there to oversee such order, make sure that this order remains in order, remains that oversee and make sure that Moors don't come in with their belligerence. Oversee the process to ensure that all Moors, all government officials are in conformity with international law, political diplomacy, friendly relations, love instead of hate. It's not about hanging them. It's not about enslaving them. It's not about, roping them off on some island somewhere. It's not about kicking them off the land. However, let me make something clear. The parties must be known. The average so-called white man, he's not the problem. Who is the problem? The elitists. The ones in the higher offices with their Negro puppets. Upon due process of law and proper investigation and adjudication, those guilty parties will be held accountable. They're the ones who will be arrested. They're the ones who will be found guilty of whatever crimes they may require, whatever punishment, even if it includes beheading, like a guillotine with a scimitar or something, whatever. But it's not all the people. It's not all white people. It's the guilty parties, the principals, and the accomplices. They're the ones who are to be found guilty by a competent tribunal. The parties must be known. We can't mix them all up. So we have to oversee these things, Moors, whether you like it or not. But guess what? Upon recognition, your state, the Wazir of your state will be a part of that roundtable council. The Wazir is the highest office in the government. The Wazir leads the direction of the state, which means then the Council of Wazirs lead the direction of all states in Morocco. So it's not just me, it's not just Dre, it's not just Amir, it's not just Akil. It's us right now, as we're going through our varying stages of advancement, as being the only recognized states currently at the time, AMPAG already knocking on the door of recognition. So guess what? Minnie Bay will be part of which is a female. Somebody brought up some issue with patriarchal. This is a patriarchal situation. No, it's not, because the office of the Wazir does not recognize gender. A female can be a Wazir, which we have a Wazir. But by the way, AMPAG is a divine state because the entire three branches are all sisters. It's a matriarchal state. The executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch are all sisters. I love it. I applaud it.
May I interject?
Yes.
Anytime the universe changed from a Milky Way, which only a mother can give milk, then a man can dictate and say, oh, we're in a matriarchic system. Because even the Milky Way alone determine and indicate to us that the whole system has been, a matriarch system, which is governed by the feminine power.
Period.
That she alone can give life. So any man in his cognizant mind can say it's no more matriarch, it's patriarch now. Then it's obvious that he's not operating on a divine frequency. I heal.
Period. The square and the compass. The compass, which is the circle or the instrument that creates the circle, is the mother. It's the feminine principle. The square is the masculine principle. So the female, the feminine, establishes the laws, and the square, the masculine, enforces the law. And then you got the G in the middle. Government. You see? It's a union between the mother and her sons and her daughters. But she's the alpha omega, she is the beginning and the end. So when you got a state like Alodia, Moroccan, Palladium, Ante, Michigan, that's headed by 3 mothers, oh my God. The hell of a chess piece on the board for us, Moors. Unami Buffalo Nation is also a hell of a piece on the board for us, but they got to do it right. They got to do it right. Islam. So all I'm saying is the Wazir Roundtable must be respected for good reasons, because no one here is a dictator. No one is telling anyone what to do. What we are doing, however, is enforcing Moroccan laws. All we're doing is enforcing standards and excellence as it relates to our state movement, our Moroccan state movement. So that when we face these people in the ICJ, we can beat them with in a landslide. And we can, and we will. We will continue to oversee this process. And we're no pushovers. So, and there's nothing slick or smooth idea that you can present. Whatever idea that you present, that you may be able to present, it better be in line with international law, and you better make your point clear. And then we might say, oh, okay, well, that we didn't know about that particular reference point. Okay, we can roll with that. So in other words, come with scholarship if you want to make your point clear. Come with scholarship, which means come with your reference points. If you don't have reference points, then just fall back and follow along with the process as we set forth. Okay, simple as that. Islam, I yield the floor before we close. Any other final questions or concerns?
Quick question: is there a possibility that these recordings can be obtained by those who wish to review in the future?
These recordings get uploaded onto Facebook. I'm sorry, YouTube.
Oh, okay, Islam brother.
This one in particular.
And quickly, may I ask, what's the YouTube channel as we speak?
AMPAG Media, AMPAG MEDIA, AMPAG Media on YouTube.
Okay, got you.
We got a lot of videos on there that you can go back. They're all usually about 3 hours long, so hopefully that's why I try to make it a little bit entertaining. That's why I laugh and clown around. But when it's time to get serious is when you meet me, you know. But I like to keep things entertaining. I like to keep things keep things light and just have a good time, because it's a matter of learning, and everyone has an opportunity to ask their questions. But when you ask a question, you got to allow for the answer to be displayed. You can't just mid-sentence jump in and start saying other stuff that's irrelevant. It's ridiculous. I don't know what just happened, but I know the basis of what, and they're not happy about the idea or the fact that we're not allowing them to just take over property territories like that. You can do that on your own, but you ain't doing that with this movement that we got going on over here that inspired you to establish your state in the first place. Just the simple fact that we did this for free to assist any and all Moors to do this stuff for free, just that alone garners their respect, Moors. No one got charged for nothing.
Islam.
This is an easy $1,000 I could have charged people. Well, I helped 3 or 4 states. I could easily charge $1,000 a piece. I'd have been $4,000 rich today. Right? But that's not what we're doing. Economic liberty without any inequality is coming from the colonists when they start paying those taxes and paying their rent and the back taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's coming from them, not from our own people. In order to make that happen, we need the unity, we need state unity amongst all our states so that we can take down this animal, this belligerent war machine known as the United States International Organization. And in order to do so, you've got to have checks and balances. You've got to have keeping in mind that the Council of Wazirs is not limited to the Council of Wazirs. We're also going to have the Council of Sayarajas. We're also going to have the Matriarchal Council. We're also going to have a round table for the Ministers of Foreign Affairs. We're also going to have a round table for the Chief Judges and the Consul Generals. Each one of these offices need to have their own round table amongst all the other states that are coming online that have checked the applicable boxes the right way and have been recognized by our several states. That's forming an organized dual society. When we can all sit at a round table based upon our several different offices and establish policies and procedures for oncoming states. So that they can because what we're doing is making things repeatable, duplicatable, and transferable, making it easy for everyone else to come online, plug in, and play. No different than a McDonald's system. Any teenager and anywhere on planet Earth and with any McDonald's anywhere on planet Earth can come into the employment, to the job, right? And plug right on in and be just as successful as the last person that was fired or quit. Why? Because McDonald's, Ray Kroc established a system, an operational system for McDonald's. That's the power in McDonald's, aside from the real estate. That's the power in all organizations and corporations. Systems that employees and any other peoples that come online or come on board with them, they could just plug and play. They just plug on in and keep going with the system that was already established, that was laid out before you. That's what we're trying to establish for every and all other oncoming states. We got work to do, and we got a long way to go. We only got 7 states. We got 43 more to go. And as we continue going, we got to continue forming and establishing and revamping and revising policies and procedures to make it easier and easier and easier for the next coming state. By the time the 50th state come on, they ain't even gonna have to do nothing but just do the Constitution. The other 48, 47, 49 states can carry that state. Eventually we'll be carrying each other. And that process that we're establishing with the Wazir Roundtable and the Sayaraha Roundtable and the Chief Judge Roundtable, et cetera, all these different roundtables is going to develop into what? The United States of Morocco, the ultimate goal. Islam. So if there's no other questions, I yield with that. Any other questions? Comments, concerns? So this was how to establish a state government. Take notes on that. Follow along with what was said. Get back with us. We've got something called the model instrument that's being put together by the good sister, the Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs for AMPAG. That would be Nova Ilu Il. And also our national Hakeem Bey, the brother that just spoke, that had to regulate this brother for a second. Excellent subject matter expert. And so these you would receive emails with the exact step-by-step process that you need to do to check off the applicable boxes as it relates to integrity of domain. Once that's completed and everything is done in accordance with what's to the instructions that set forth, from that point you gain recognition and we move on. Islam.
This Kirk Palmer Bay.
Yes, sir. Kirk Palmer Bay. Where you been?
Yeah, I've been here, man. I've been here. I've been listening all the time.
Okay.
I want to know when that document is gonna come online, because we are putting our flags and the seal together.
How many more you got?
I got 7 so far.
Oh, that's all you need. That's all.
Oh, we're trying to get to 10. We're trying to get to 10.
You can, if that's what's best for you, go for it. But I'm just telling you that the minimum that you need is 3, ideally 5, and if you got 7, that's even better.
Okay. All right.
So we'll talk, brother. 'Cause
Yeah.
me and you've been in conversation. I just hadn't heard from you for a while, and I see why, because you've been busy checking these boxes.
Yes, we have to check the boxes.
Islam.
So, when you think the document is gonna be ready?
Which document are you talking about in particular? The ones that to establish your state, correct?
Yes.
It's ready now. That's what I'm saying. I'll get with you. Those documents
So
are ready now. See, the
so when can we
documents.
get a?
Let me make something clear for you.
Yeah.
The documents that you're referring to really is being established. Okay. Remember earlier I was talking about the several different boxes. Your flag,
Yeah.
your constitution, your seal,
Yes.
and all that stuff. You establish all that stuff by yourself. What you need is the declaration of statehood document that you don't have to type up. It's already a templated one that you can just take, plug and play, change the seal, change the name, put your name on it, remove our link, put your link on there for your public inauguration video, right? So you'll get that, and then you'll get if you don't want to burn up the brain cells required to write up a whole new constitution, we'll share our constitution with you, and you just change it from the name of AMPAG to the name of your state.
Right.
So that's all that you really get. That's not, that the easiest one is establishing your state government is so easy and free. All you're really, if there's a charge, all you're paying for is the postage to send it off. And whoever you might pay to contract, whoever you contract with to create your seal, flag and seal. Which, by the way, the good brother Hakeem Bey on the line that was talking earlier, he can create your flag and seal for you. He's excellent when it comes to computer graphics. Excellent, absolutely excellent. So I'll put you in contact with him, and he can put that together for you, your flag and your seal. But as far as the documents, you only need two documents. That would be the Constitution for you to revise it to fit your state, and then the Declaration of Statehood for you to revise it to your state, and that's all you need, really.
Okay.
That's nothing more than to send an email. So here's what I want you to do: text me your email, and I'll send it to you tonight. Because I was actually supposed to have been done, and I just got caught up.
It's good that we all link up and we all realize what we really need, and we all doing it. You know what I mean? Because the more is down here, we excited to get it done.
Exactly. And we're
But
excited.
we don't want to rush and mess up anything. So we want. That's why I said if we get the information where we can just go ahead and forward it, put it together, and take our time and put it together the right and proper way.
Islam, I certainly, yes,
So-
that's how it works. And everyone on the line, just so you know, when it comes to establishing your states, I'm at your beck and call. And I speak for the other Wazirs and the other states, the mentorship states. We're at your beck and call. Whatever you need, give us a call. We'll help you through whatever it is that you need. No charge. No charge. I like to brag on that. No charge. The only charge is your time and effort to actually do it and do it the right way and follow along with the principles and the instructions that's been set forth not only by international law, but also the policies and procedures that's been established by the Wazir Roundtable. Islam? Islam. So, Brother Kirk, I'll be in touch with you to send you that information so you can go ahead and establish.
Yes. I'm gonna go ahead and send it email.
All right, sounds good, good brother. All right. Well, with that said, and with that, I appreciate the call. I even appreciate the little back and forth and all. It was good. Just continue checking the boxes. We're here to assist you. We want to assist you. We want you all online. We want us all to be part of this organized dual society, but it's got to be done the right way. And as long as you're willing to accept higher standards of excellency in Morocco, then we don't have a problem. Islam, peace and love, everybody, and may the blessings of Allah be upon you all. Islam.
Islam, brother Islam.
Peace.
Morocco.